into the Vacaville, Fairfield area, up into Napa, Santa Rosa, and then you head on north. And certainly, if you look at Concord, which is at the bottom, and then to the west of Concord, that's the Bay Area. So obviously, it's all over the place, and this is going to continue to grow. There's going to be another round of power outages, which is scheduled for noon. Right now, we're sitting at about 800,000 customers. Rob, at noon, another layer of that is going to be added as the wind continues to come in. I just stepped outside.
Yeah.
The wind is hitting Sacramento now.
Right, it is. And we're seeing some gusts in the Sacramento area right around 20, 25 miles an hour. And I just want to take you through this step by step. So hang with me. This will be a lengthy explanation of everything going on, but I think it all adds up. So if you don't watch anything else today, just watch this and share it with your friends and your family, people affected by this, because there's a lot of people that will not understand this scenario that's playing out all over the place. Let me give you a prime example. In Auburn, power's out. Placerville, huge power outages. We also see power outages north of this area. In Oroville and Chico and some of those other spots, we have power outages as well. But the wind is either calm or just not that windy. So why would we have this scenario play out? The reason why is because where your power is being generated is usually far, far away from your house. Then it goes into transmission lines, which are usually very tall, and they just happen to be in very wind-prone areas. So again, what's happening outside of your neighborhood actually matters more for how power is generated and then how it gets to your house. If there's dangerous weather conditions at any point along that line, that's the concern for the power lines. And I'll show you a prime example of how that happened not too long ago, a well-known example. So earlier this morning, we started to see the wind come in. This is in the Redding area, 36 miles an hour in some of the foothill areas just outside. Again, 30, 35 mile an hour wind gusts. That's pretty strong, and we have potential in the valley spots and up high at 40, 45, 55 miles an hour when this thing really gets ripping later on tonight and early tomorrow morning. So it started, it's moving along, and again, it's not your house that matters so much. Yes, in some ways it could, but really it's the big transmission lines that PG&E runs throughout all of Northern California that they are most concerned about. So again, let me just give you an example. I'm going to go back here. This is the grid. You hear about the grid all the time. These are the big lines. This does not even include the pole from maybe it's something in the backyard or from the street to your house, so or even underground cables. These are the big transmission lines that are tall, high up in the sky, and move a lot of electricity from where it's generated, whether it's power plants, hydroelectric dams, wind power, solar power, anything that creates electricity. Initially gets to these lines and then it moves to communities. Then they have substations. Electricity over time starts to lose its momentum and it needs to be recharged and relayed. It needs more energy to keep it going. And then sometimes at that juncture it gets spread out to different communities. So here's a prime example. Wind not that strong in Auburn, not that strong in places like Roseville, Rockland, or just outside, which we do have power outages in places like Loomis and Penryn and Auburn. But again, here's one example. Here's a reservoir up from Placerville. It could feed into the community, and if the winds are strong up there, then you're going to get your power cut off to where you live. So again, it's a disconnect, but here's the best example I can come up with. Do you remember the campfire? Early in the morning for Paradise and for Chico, the weather was not that bad. I was working that morning. We had breezy conditions. It was a red flag warning area, but the winds were not that strong in Paradise. But where the Feather River Canyon is and where the origination of the campfire was, where the PG&E power lines are, it was very windy, 60, 65 miles an hour by some estimates. So that's where the problem was, far away from Paradise. And then you know what happens next. The wind speed was able to take those embers into the community. So it's not what's happening in your neighborhood, it's what's happening where these transmission lines are. For example, in that same spot, there's a wind sensor, 38 mile per hour gust within the last hour. And in Paradise and Chico, 12 miles an hour. So that's the ultimate scenario of we know what happens for the power lines ultimately matters down the line for perhaps a fire or at least power outages, which we're seeing all over the place. 50s and 60s this morning, 30s and 40s up high. Today is going to be a brisk and cooler day. Highs only in the 70s. The reason why all of this is happening is because we're getting a big change of weather. And you're going to see that in the wind. You're also going to feel that for the temperatures as well. So let's skip ahead to this afternoon. More people will be affected by the wind. Notice where it's not windy. It's still not that windy in the Sierra foothills, but just you wait. Then we get closer to sunset and then it will start ramping up. Middle of the night, it's windy up high, it's windy down low, and it's going to be really windy in the coastal range. I'm really worried about that one spot, which happens to be roughly where the Tubbs fire broke out near Santa Rosa, and wine country as well. But even the Sierra foothills also affected by the wind. And then we finally get to the end of the line. By Thursday evening, the winds should relax and we should be in a much better place. So this will have different start times, but it all has the same stop time. Later on, 8 o'clock tonight for the Sierra foothills, but already ongoing now for the Valley and the Bay Area, and this will continue through much of the day. Southern California is in this as well, and I think this is an important point. It's not just a PG&E problem. Southern California Edison, as well as San Diego Gas and Electric, they also have these transmission lines, and they are also shutting off power preemptively because they are concerned about the risk to the communities that they service as well. So California is going to be going through a 2 to 3 day big fire weather event. All of this is being done to prevent the next great California wildfire. Back to you.
All right, Rob, a lot to cover and a lot more to come. Thank you. As the days go on here, the next couple of days, going to be very busy. All right, a lot of areas without power trying to decide whether or not to keep the schools open during these power outages.
It's true. Classes are canceled for numbers of school. I know my son's school is canceled. He's actually over there in the corner.
Oh, is that who's in there?
I had to bring him to school, and I think a lot of parents are in the same situation because I had to bring him to work. You have to work. What else are you going to do? It's really stressful, right?
It is. A lot of parents don't have childcare.
Yeah.
And especially you think early in the week. It's not like a Friday or a Monday or something like that. So you're one of many who's probably in a similar jam. Okay, closures so far that we know about, including Amador County Unified, El Dorado Union, Grass Valley School District, schools and programs, Rescue Union, Stony Creek Joint Unified, some schools in Marysville Joint Unified, Big Lagoon, Southern Humboldt Unified, Esparto Unified, and in the Bay Area, we've also learned classes are canceled for Solano County Community College and UC Berkeley. We know the outages can be confusing, so we're answering your questions just as quickly as we can.
Yeah, and that's why on Facebook we're talking to you about, hey, it is confusing. A lot of people are saying, what time do I expect to see closures and delays in my neighborhood as well? So, you know, Pat is saying Rescue, his area around 1 o'clock this morning, he started to see no power. Some people are saying, Sam was saying, hey, why is it that I don't have power at my house, but across the street they do have power? And then Tracy kind of follows up, and this is why we're asking you, Rob. I don't see when. Why am I being so inconvenienced? Because a lot of people are frustrated.
Well, just imagine this, because you have to understand where these comments are coming from. When you lose power, as you did this morning, we need to highlight that too, because our very own Brittany right here is going through this herself.
It's stressful.
And what was it like when the power went out?
Okay, I'll tell you, it's hot and sweaty. I couldn't wash my hair. I was worried about work. My groceries, I just spent $150 at the grocery store, and so I'm really worried about that. You know, I have pets as well, so I am kind of frustrated. But on the flip side, I wouldn't want anything to happen to my house. So yes, I'm inconvenienced right now, but in the long run, if it helps my house not, you know, in a fire, then I'm going to power it out. What do you guys think?
Well,
Agree?
PG&E is doing this because you look at Paradise, and you think about what happened in Paradise, and then think about what we're having to go through. It's a small drop in the bucket. You know, obviously we're all being inconvenienced, and it is a problem because they don't want Brittany's house to end up like Paradise.
Right, and it's frustrating all the way around. A long-term solution, I don't know how long this can go on, but this is the thing that we have to get through today. So power shut off, people step outside, there's no wind.
Yeah.
And this is the super pinch point of frustration, because let's face it, we view the world through our own lives, through our own experience of what's happening to us at the time, and how could this be happening? So again, this morning, where we have massive power outages in places like Auburn, there's no gas stations open in Auburn right now. That's a huge community. They're driving to Rockland to get gas. And you know, by the time you pull into a gas station, you need gas.
Speaking of Auburn, and a nice transition by you, let's check in with Carlos Herrera, who is in Auburn, and he has the very latest on what's happened there. Carlos, you're at a gas station. What's happening?
Yeah, you just asked what is happening. That's exactly what's happening. Take a look. People coming into this gas station off of Highway 49 and Dry Creek Road, they're coming in and they're realizing, wow, this is closed. Just like many other gas stations, just like any other stations in Auburn. In fact, this is the busiest one here in Auburn, the main one at least, here on Highway 49 before people head out of Auburn heading north this direction. Of course, we just saw an employee of this gas station coming in here and putting on this yellow tape on here to let people know that this place is closed. It's kind of difficult now since the sun is up and drivers don't realize that it's actually closed until they come in here. So we've had a lot of people wondering what exactly is going on. Greg Shorey came up to us to our news van earlier. You were asking, is it closed? Is it open? What's going on?
I had no idea what was going on. They didn't give us very much advance warning, and I woke up this morning to a darkened town, and this is not, I was told it was due to a windstorm. I don't see any wind. I mean, it's not even breezy right now. You can't even fly a kite. And they're shutting down entire communities up Northern California to make a point. PG&E, that's what you're doing to make a political point. You're just going to shut down. People can't go to work. Phone towers are out. People can't even communicate. We had no warning. There's people not being able to go to work. We can't get gas. People's food is spoiling in their refrigerators. Thank you, PG&E.
We've seen a lot of people coming into this gas station and kind of trying to fill up. But this is a big commuter town.
This company alone will lose tens of thousands of dollars in the next few days. For what? I don't see any wind. I don't see the problem. This is a joke.
Were you prepared in your home?
No, not at all. I wasn't given enough advance warning. We're going to have spoiled food. I'm angry.
Like Greg, many other people in Auburn are upset. Again, most people we spoke with say that they only got 1 day notice of this planned power shutoff. Hunter here this morning as well. You were trying to gas up. You realize it's closed. So what now?
Right now, I'm just going to go find out where to gas up. Right now, I'm kind of worried about food in the house because we got the kids. It's just the first of the month. Got our budget done for food and try to figure something out. Honestly, I wouldn't have mind as long as we've gotten more notice. A day notice is just not enough.
You talked about a budget. You talked about food for your family. This really screws up your plan, to say the least, right?
It does. And again, I wouldn't mind if they do all these tests. I just need a little bit more warning. I mean, with people with kids in the house, I can't work today. It's just a lot of people are cutting out of money and I don't know what to do.
Have your family talked about this? What's your plan moving forward?
Well, we have some stuff, some emergency supplies and whatnot. So we did plan a little bit for it, but we're just kind of stuck in a rut right now with the money that we have invested. In groceries, we could have invested in other things for the girls. So,
all right, Hunter. Good luck to you. Like Hunter, many other people. We spoke with the owner of this gas station, actually, who came in here at midnight. He was loading up his pickup truck with all the frozen goods, trying to save up as much as he could before it actually spoils. He said he expects to be closed for at least the rest of the week. So definitely a lot of concern there. He also says his biggest concern isn't the money he's going to be losing, but drivers that, having to do this. Trying to wonder where they can fill up this morning. As I mentioned earlier, this is a big commuter city. A lot of people drive to Sacramento to work every morning. The closest gas station to Auburn is Rockland if they're heading to Sacramento. So again, a lot of confusion, a lot of inconveniences. Again, I want to show you live here what's going on. That big line of cars, of people having to turn and get out of this gas station. We were also at the Home Depot right here in Auburn. It's about 1.5 miles away from Highway 49 and Dry Creek Road. People there trying to buy last-minute supplies with waters, batteries, and flashlights, and even generators. We spoke with employees at the Home Depot. They're opening today at 7 a.m. They said they're expecting to really sell out of those generators early this morning. So we'll send it back over to you guys and hoping people can figure things out here.
That was a great interview with Hunter, Carlos. It kind of gives you the perspective of one man, one family. Obviously, it seems like Hunter is heavily budgeted, paycheck to paycheck, and he can't work today. So a day or two off of work for him, that's completely lost money.
It really is, and we spoke to a lot of people with that same story. Hunter, of course, said he's going to have to figure something out. Luckily, he has enough to get through or get by for the rest of the week. But again, this is the stories that we're hearing from by people. This is just the start of these planned power shutoffs. So hopefully, again, the best is to come for them. Yeah,
I hope that there are other businesses like the ones behind you, Carlos, where they have perishables and items that need to be refrigerated, that they have some type of a generator backup plan, or else, they're going to lose all that food. Or you showed first thing in the morning, that guy was loading up the back of his car and truck and getting all that food out of there. So I hope people have backup plans.
That's their last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah, last resort. And you mentioned again, the generators, they're not cheap. Home Depot is soon selling out of them. So where now? Where do they buy those generators? Where can they find that money to spend and buy a generator? That's a big question.
Yeah, well, they'll get one maybe for the next time, because there's probably going to be a next time the way things are looking right now with these blackouts. Carlos, thank you. Carlos has been in Auburn all morning. We'll check back with him. In the meantime, Giacomo Luca has been at Cal OES headquarters since early this morning, and it's a meeting of the minds there. Everybody who's anybody in the state with disasters is there, right, Carlos?
Well, that's right, Walt. Pretty much everybody from across the state, all of the important actors, anybody who has a handle in crisis management and response, they are here, both from the government sector as well as the private sector, the National Guard, Cal Fire. We have the California Conservation Crew, and of course we have folks with PG&E. I'm going to talk to Lindsay with PG&E here. You know, the biggest question right now is just what is the big message that PG&E wants to get out in terms of focus in the immediate for all of your customers?
Well, first and foremost, you know, we understand how disruptive it can be to have your power shut off for safety. We really ask for our customers' patience right now as we wait for this high wind event to pass, and then we'll be able to get our hundreds of crew members and helicopters on the ground and up in the air to start inspecting the lines to ensure that there is no damage. We'll be able to isolate the damage and repair it, and then start to safely re-energize the power.
I know everybody wants to know the big question, when's the power going to come back on?
That's really dependent on this high wind event. So we're forecasting right now, and the National Weather Forecast is forecasting that we expect the high wind event to, at least in this first wave of shutoffs, to end sometime around midday tomorrow. And at that point, when we get the all clear, that's when we can start sending our crews out to do the inspections, ensure that the lines are safe to re-energize. Now, we do expect a second wave of power shutoffs in the Bay Area. That should start around noon today, and there's also a potential for a third wave down in the southern portion of our territory. So again, it will depend on when we get the all clear on the weather.
And can you talk to me about numbers in terms of the amount of power lines that you have? And
Sure.
you know, when people look at, they hear this number so far, 500,000 customers without power, but it extends even beyond that, because it's not just customers. You have thousands and thousands of miles of power lines that need to be inspected in order to be able to turn them back on safely.
Yeah, that's correct. So this power shutoff is expected to impact about 800,000 customers throughout our service area throughout those three waves. And the numbers we have this morning is transmission lines. So those are the large power lines. It's 60 kilovolts and above. That's about 2,400 miles. And then for our distribution lines, those are the smaller lines that serve homes and businesses. That's about 24,000 miles of line. Altogether, that would circle the earth. So that's the job that we have ahead of us once we are able to get the all clear from the weather and get out and actually start inspecting the lines.
And I know the goal is 24 to 48 hours once that wind event passes through and we've got the all clear, correct?
Yes, that is our goal always, is to be able to safely turn the power back on within 24 to 48 hours. But we really want to ask people not only for their patience, but that they plan ahead and expect that their power could be off for several days.
I'm imagining dozens of crews, hundreds and hundreds of people are going to be out over the course of the next week working to get folks get their power back on.
Yeah, that's correct. We have about 700 crew members, and last count I saw was 42 helicopters. They're being pre-positioned in the areas that are going to be affected by the power shutoff so that they can get right to work as soon as we get the all clear.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate it, and thanks for your time.
Thank
I know,
you.
of course, everybody here today is very busy. They are in and out of meetings. They're monitoring the situation. But of course, we have good news from overnight from Cal OES saying, so far, no roads closed, no evacuation orders in place. So we do have good news there. And of course, some information coming in to us from PG&E. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
All right, long day for PG&E and all the people at Cal OES today who are meeting CHP, all the big state agencies, all pooling their resources and minds. Okay, you're watching continuous coverage of PG&E's massive power shutoffs, which began last night, midnight. Nearly 800,000 customers across California are all expected to lose power. It all started at midnight due to the dangerous fire weather conditions. That's wind. That's millions of people. We have a list of all the communities impacted on the bottom of your screen, and we can also text PG&E's map to you text the word power to 916-321-3310. We'll send you the link. We will leave that number on the bottom right corner of the screen the entire newscast here. All right, let's take a look at the outages happening right now. This is the latest map in real time on PG&E's website. Kirsten, you're joining me now. Obviously, if you go to this interactive map and you click on each of the purple dots, let's just do that if we can. Let's pick a random situation here. So we've clicked on, where are we going to click on? Where's the arrow? Give me a town. Okay, we're in North Lakeport. We're going to click on there. And then as you see as an example, you click on any one of these purple dots. You'll get that map which will show you the areas where power is out. Obviously, the middle of that is Clear Lake. Some of the other towns, when you click on that purple thing here, the link, it will tell you how many homes are without power, when power is expected to be back on. So if you go to that, it's pretty interactive if you know people in any of these towns.
Is.
Yeah.
If you live in that town, or if you know someone that lives in that town, or if you are just somewhere that someone is going and they want to check and see if power is still out at their house, this is a really good resource to make sure that A, yeah, the power is out, and B, when the power will come back on. But worst case scenario, power could be out for up to 5 days according to PG&E. So we have to keep mindful of that. Continue to keep this link. We'll toss it to you, 916-321-3310. Okay, so what about Sacramento County? PG&E is not the electric provider here, but could there be a ripple effect? ABC 10's Chris Thomas talked to Sacramento Metro Fire to get tips for people who are both in and out of the areas where power is being shut off.
What do we need to know? First of all, we've got this red flag warning, the potential for as many as 800,000 PG&E customers to be without power. This is a big deal.
It's a very big deal. We're going to have winds from 15 to 20 miles per hour through the Sacramento region. We have fuels that are super dry, super ready for combustion. So we need everybody to be very fire safe. Think about that when you're towing trailers, that you don't have your chains dragging. Don't throw your cigarettes out your window. It's stuff we always say, but now it's even more critical. Don't think that you're going to go out and do any defensible space, lawn mowing, or anything else that might cause a metal blade to hit a rock and cause a spark. It will ignite a fire. And with these dry conditions, low humidity, dry grasses, it will cause a fire spread. The other thing, you mentioned 800,000 customers without power. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of addresses. There's absolutely going to be people within that range that have medical problems, who rely on electricity to keep their medications at a certain temperature, their oxygen devices. So if you're one of those people, consider relocating during this potential power outage, or make sure you have backup power. Also, if you're in these areas, make sure you have battery-powered radios, and something simple, charge your cell phones immediately before you go to bed tonight. Give them as much power as possible.
What should people do to make sure that they're still getting notices?
We rely on our cellular data very heavily in society today, and that's fine. Those are going to work for quite a while, but we want some other things too, right? So that's where we go into the radios, battery-powered, AM radios, very simple devices. And these are things that I think in a prior generation we used to be very ready for, but AM radio, all that's going to be broadcast on that. It's going to come right away. It's going to be immediate. And here's the other thing, listen for the sirens in some of the neighboring counties to Sacramento. Some of the sheriff's departments have used different sirens to notify when it's time to evacuate. We're talking about Fire Prevention Week this week also. It's National Fire Prevention Week. And one of their themes is to plan 2 ways out of your house when it catches on fire. But that's a good theme to use for your neighborhood as well. Have at least 2 ways out. Fire might impinge one of your exit routes, or there might be fire apparatus coming in one way. So you might have to go out the other. But think about that. Pre-plan your escape, whether it's in a structure or in the wildland setting. It's absolutely an inconvenience. And I think the utility companies realize that, and certainly the fire services and the other public safety agencies do as well. But it's for a reason. We don't want to have a repeat of the past incidents. And we do know that several of these fires have been caused by electrical generation issues. A point on that, though, is that it's not always a utility company. Sometimes that comes from generators that people have in their yards. So if you're going to use a generator for backup power, make sure that you have it cleared of vegetation. Those get hot. Those sometimes spit out sparks out of their exhaust systems. So if you're doing that, great. We understand that that has to happen, but make sure you have good clearing around it and make sure that that's a well-maintained device. And if possible, look at buying a battery-powered generator. Some of the new battery-powered generators can actually supply power for up to 20 to 30 hours for a refrigerator, and that can actually keep you and your medication safe and at the right temperature for a very long time.
But folks are saying, well, what about SMUD? What about some of the other power companies that are here within our area, Roseville, for example? What should people know in that regard?
Right now, we don't have a indicator that we're going to lose power in the Sacramento County area. However, we are going to have the same winds that are affecting Butte and Placer and Amador and El Dorado counties come through the same area. In fact, the way that this area is designed, the geography is that we're all in a valley. And when the north wind comes and it gets in alignment with the slopes and the mountain ranges in Butte and blows right through Sacramento, that wind becomes super dried. That helps dry out the fuel with any of the recovery of moisture that they had overnight and makes it even more ready for ignition. So we're going to look at humidity is probably in the 10 to 20% tomorrow, which is as bad as they've ever been. I'm not going to say the lowest, but they're going to be bad. So any kind of spark can cause a fire. Wind drives fires on flat terrain more than any other feature. So with that, with a 20-mile-per-hour wind, we're going to have a hard time catching up with any kind of grass fires, which are historically fast-moving incidents. However,
hi there, meteorologist Rob Carlmark, part of the Morning Blend crew. If you were just watching us on Facebook, a very important part of that story, so thanks for watching that. Just had to cut it a little bit short. Let's get to our weather today. We are seeing some winds ripping right now through the valley. Gusts of 20 to 25, and in some cases, especially once you get north to Redding, 30 to 35 miles an hour already. It's going to last for 2 days with the strongest winds later on tonight and early tomorrow morning. Grab a jacket before you head out because it's going to be windy. We know that. There's a big fire risk for all elevations. It even increases once we get to the higher elevations by 8 p.m. tonight. So it's a bit staggered, down low now, up high later on. And it's going to be cooler, much cooler than yesterday. We were at 90 degrees yesterday for most locations, only in the 70s today. Let's time out the stronger wind gusts. For the valley spots and the foothills, it'll start ramping up gradually through the day. You can see that by overnight, it gets really strong. I think some of the strongest winds of this entire event will be in the middle of the night when people are sleeping, and if something starts fire-wise, very difficult to attack it because it's dark and aircraft may be limited or maybe not be able to use it at all until sunup. Then we're going to see this all end once we get to Thursday evening in much better conditions for the weekend. So we'll take you through this one more time. Red flag warning right now for the valley spots and the Bay Area. 8 p.m. it kicks off tonight for the Sierra foothills, and it will last all the way until Thursday, 5 p.m. Once we get past that, the weather gets much better. However, PG&E is letting people know it may be a day or two before the power comes back on in your community. Brittany.
That is good to know. All right, traffic picking up for rush hour as expected. Your drive times, Elk Grove 99 into Sacramento, 27 minutes. If you're taking 5 northbound, you're looking at 33 minutes. So traffic already building as you approach the Cap City Freeway. Roseville into downtown Sacramento, you're looking at 27 minutes. However, if you're coming in from Auburn, you're going to see a lot of traffic lights out. You'll want to treat that as a 4-way stop. Traffic moving on the other side of 80. I'll update you throughout the morning.
All right, so lots of folks are thinking about electricity or the lack thereof and the fire danger. But as ABC 10's Lena Howland found out, we can't forget about water conservation. That comes into play too at a time like this.
I'm Lena Howland in Calaveras County, where they are desperately trying to get this message out there. If your power is shut off, you must conserve water. They're recommending no extra use of water, no washing cars, filling up pools, or watering lawns. They're also urging customers to turn off their landscaping systems, take only short showers, and flush the toilet only when necessary. They say wastewater is their biggest concern, coming from showers, washing dishes, dishwashers, laundry machines, and toilets. So if their backup generators fail, it's possible that waste could back up into your home or even into the street in your neighborhood.
You know, that could be a pretty significant impact to the community. So we're going to do everything we can to avoid that, but we really need the help of the community to conserve water to take the pressure off of those facilities.
This water district has spent months preparing, strategically placing backup generators like this one across the area. But in the event that one of these fails, they say it is critical to conserve your water.
All right, thank you for that, Lena. Okay, 8:30 right now. Here are some things to keep in mind before a power safety shutoff. According to PG&E, you need to update your contact information with the company. Also, create a safety plan for your family and your pets. Also, get an emergency kit that includes food and water so that you can be prepared. Also, make sure your phones and other devices are charged and stay off of social media because that drains batteries. If you have a generator, make sure that it works and learn how to manually open your garage. keep a battery-powered radio nearby, and it is important to keep cash on hand as ATM card machines and ATMs will not be working. And if you haven't filled up already, get a full tank of gas because gas stations will be affected by the power outages too. You can get the latest information on PG&E power shutoffs by downloading the ABC 10 app. We will keep you updated with everything you need to know because this is a historic event, Brittany.
It is, Kirsten. Now keep in mind these shutouts, they are impacting just about all of Northern California. The Bay Area is expected to be hit hard. People are rushing to stores to get things like ice to help save their food. Ace Hardwell also running out of supplies in some of the hardest hit area. Oakland last night seemed like everyone in uniform who could help was doing just that.
We are fully prepared, and we have made it a mandatory that all officers, all sworn officers, their days off are canceled. And starting this evening at 2 o'clock in the morning, we've even assigned our entire investigative team will be in uniforms and being out in the field.
Oakland's mayor is calling on PG&E to minimize the impact of those shutoffs, saying people living without power for 5 days is devastating. The Caldecott Tunnel remains open. PG&E says that they will have generators. We also called Amtrak Capital Corridor. They are open as well, at least for right now. But I want to take you to our traffic maps, some areas that you could see slower drive times as well, and some resource centers. So Fairfield, we already now almost 18,000 people without power. Now, your community resource center is in Solano County. It's actually in Vacaville, Leisure Town Road. That means you're going to see slower drive times in that area, maybe for the next couple of days. Another area of concern, Auburn. We have more than 16,000 people without power. You can see the Community Resource Center is on High Street. And of course, El Dorado Hills, you're going to see slower drive times as well. More than 5,000 people without power. Your Community Resource Center is on Placerville Road. Now, we are looking out with you for continuous coverage of PG&E, their massive power shoutouts. We are going to make sure to update you throughout the day. Beginning last night, nearly 800,000 customers across California are expected to lose power because of these dangerous fire weather conditions. That's millions of people. Now we have all the information, the communities impacted. They're on the bottom of your screen. We are going to continue to update you on that throughout the day. You can text PG&E map. Just text the word power to 916-321-3310, 916-321-3310, and we'll send you a link. We'll leave the number on the bottom of your screen throughout the day to make sure you're prepared. Now let's take a look at the outages happening right now on Facebook. A lot of people are asking, when is it going to hit me? So over 500,000 people lost power around midnight last night. Now the second phase, that's going to kick off around noon this afternoon. So I know a lot of people are asking about San Joaquin County. That's expected to hit around noon. We also Santa Clara as one as well, but you can see a lot of places right now without power. Fairfield, Auburn, and El Dorado Hills, like we just told you. And Rob Conroy, I think the big takeaway you've been telling us since you started, around 2 or 3 this morning, is that people are like, when it's not at my house, it's not affecting me. But you're saying, wait, hold up, that's not the case.
Right. It has to do with the grid, and we're going to go much more into this. But I just want to let you know, you see that northern section of the power outages?
Yeah.
That's toward Chico, Oroville, Paradise. We're not expecting the stronger winds to show up until later on tonight, but I've already seen a 38-mile-an-hour wind gust exactly where the campfire broke out. So in some of these cases, it may not be windy at your house, but it's what's going on where the transmission lines are. And if it affects your community, if that's where your power comes from, if it flows through that area, then you ultimately may be getting your power cut off far upstream from where you live. And it's a very difficult situation to understand firsthand because we assume that the power comes from the power pole near our house or it comes from an underground cable. And if it's not windy at your house, it's a difficult disconnect to make in the moment. But I think we're all learning more about how the grid works, where the power comes from, where it goes, and how it all works together, as unfortunate as it is this morning. Because as we're seeing right now, some of the earliest shutoffs were high up in the mountains, starting at midnight, and it's not windy there now, and I don't expect it to be terribly windy until later on tonight. So the timing of this, let's talk about that, but the reality is that we will be experiencing dangerous red flag fire conditions for some of us right now, for some of us a little bit later on. until Thursday afternoon. That's really the cutoff time, and it doesn't really matter where you are. That's when the wind for everybody starts to die down, the humidity comes back up, and we're in a much better place going into the weekend. But as PG&E has let everybody know, it may be a day or two. They're going to fly aircraft, helicopters, they have to inspect the lines. There's literally hundreds and hundreds of miles of lines that they have to inspect to make sure that it's safe before they flip the power back on. Nobody wants to hear that, but that's what they're conveying to their customers, which are without power right now. So first of all, again, for the Sierra foothills, it's going to be later on tonight when the weather will be dangerous enough, where it's windy enough and dry enough that we will have red flag warning conditions. But for the valley spots, it's right now. In fact, I'm looking outside in the Sacramento area. We've got some gusts happening. And earlier this morning, it was really kicking around in places like Redding, and then Orland and areas to the south as well. So this is an ongoing thing at the moment, and it's bone dry. And remember, I want you to think of this whole thing as a big arch, as a curve, as something that's going to ramp up, peak out in the middle of the night tonight and early tomorrow morning for almost all of us, and then start to come back down after sunrise tomorrow. So we're in this phase of it. We are just leaning into this multi-day event. So let's take you through the winds at the moment. This is a prime example. Everybody in Auburn, I mean, if maybe you're watching us on your phone, but a lot of people don't have power. There's not even gas stations open in Auburn, and so many other communities. And I know how it is. There might be one or two in your community, and the next one might be 10, 15 miles down the road. So that is a massive pressure point of frustration. But remember, the winds are coming. So it may not be windy there, but it may be windy where some of these transmission lines are. So again, earlier this morning, we saw wind gusts 30, 35 miles an hour. I've seen stronger ones in some of these canyons and passes that we know have major, important, vital transmission lines. So it's what's happening there that is most important for the power safety shutoff. Let's talk about the reality of your day. We're talking a lot about power shutoff and wind and red flag warning conditions. But if you live in a suburb, say, of Sacramento or Stockton or Modesto, part of maybe your biggest concern may be some of that if it happens, but it's also just getting through the day. There's a lot of things that are light and large, like patio furniture, umbrellas, things like that, that maybe you had out recently because it was 90 degrees yesterday. You got to put it away before you head off, because those are the things that take off. Garbage cans, things like that. Maybe some early holiday decorations. People have those inflatable pumpkin things on their yard. Bring it in, because you don't want it to be down the road. So driving is also going to be tricky. Anything east-west is going to have a crosswind. So if you're going over, say, the Yolo Causeway or I-5 between Woodland and the Sacramento Airport, and it's high up and there's a crosswind, these trucks, they don't want to, but they may be swerving around because the wind is hitting them as a crosswind. So that's something just to be aware of. The air is going to get very dirty and dusty, especially near open fields. We live in ag country after all. Watch out. Visibility lower in some spots, and just a lot of grit to the air. You're going to see up miles down the highway. And then also just plant and tree debris in general. There may be power outages not related to planned power outages, but just straight up a branch falling on a power line in places that aren't even included in these areas. So you just have to be aware of all the other things that will be unfolding in the next 2 days. Yesterday, we were close to 90 degrees. Today, we are in for a massive cool down. We were kind of close to records yesterday, and now we slipped far below average. So it's going to be windy and much cooler. So a jacket might be something you might want around pretty much all day long. And the winds are going to be really consistent. It's going to be breezy and windy for all elevations pretty much all day long, except for the Sierra foothills, which I mentioned. That will ramp up later on today and tonight. The timing of this is important. This will show you where the wind is, the direction, and when it will start to ramp up. So it's happening now for the valley spots. The most critical fire area in all of this, by the way, the lowest humidity and the strongest winds are going to be the Sacramento Valley, off to the west side, and in the coastal range right in this area here. Fairfield, Vacaville, and areas off to the north, right in that zone. Pretty much the zone where we saw the wine country fires break out a couple years ago, because the wind speed, duration, and humidity, low humidity, is almost on par to that event 2 years ago. So now we're getting into the evening, and then you can start to see the Sierra get into the mix. This is the middle of the night. This is 2 o'clock in the morning tonight. Let's face it. If you've not had power, you're probably going to bed early. Then the winds ramp up overnight, and then that's your most critical time where the wind and low humidity could spark a fire, or if something starts, it could make it move very quickly, because it's not just power lines. We need to remember that. Almost all fires are not started by power lines. They're started by humans, either intentionally or accidentally, or equipment malfunctioning. There's just all sorts of things. There's dozens of ways for a fire to start. So I'm worried about the power. I'm worried about these other things happening, but any spark is going to take off quickly with fire weather like this. Then we get to sunrise early tomorrow morning. It's still windy, but then as we move into the afternoon and beyond, things get better, not worse for your Thursday. Just to highlight this one more time, this is the grid. If you live here, but it's windy here, that's what matters, because the power coming to your house may be cut off because it's just too dangerous for the electricity to be running through those lines. So there's so many different ways of looking at this and a bunch of different ways that we're going to cover it throughout the course of the day. But I just want to highlight this one more time. This is happening now. It's going to happen at its worst overnight to early tomorrow morning when people are sleeping. So let everybody know and just be fire aware, because at any moment, if something starts, it grows quickly, especially the nighttime stuff. We've seen this so many times. If something starts in the middle of the night, like the Santa Rosa fires, you have to evacuate quickly. You may not even get noticed because you may not have power. And aircraft. For these big fires, in the very early stages, aircraft is one of the best tools in the toolbox that they have, but if it's in the middle of the night, almost all aircraft will be grounded. But I will let you know one thing that's changed this year compared to last. CAL FIRE came to this station and spoke to us. They do have new aircraft, helicopters, that are clear to fly at night if need be, and that may be the case, because remember, it's all about fires and how that will affect people. Power is happening now, we know that, but fire could become the story at any hour, at any moment throughout the next 2 days in Northern California. Back to you.
All right, pretty well covered it, Rob. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, so we are giving you continuous coverage of PG&E's massive power shutoffs beginning last night around midnight. Nearly 800,000 customers, and customers, that could be up to 2 million people across California. They are expected to lose power if they haven't already because of dangerous fire weather conditions. That's millions of people. 2.4 million people is what some people are saying. We have a list of all of the communities affected on our website, abc10.com, and we can also text you PG&E's Power Outage Map. If you text 916-321-3310, but we got to warn you, so many people are going to that outage map and it's having a little bit of an issue, some technical difficulties. So it will have to reload for you, but we can send you that link so that you can make sure that your house is or is not affected. And we're going to keep the phone number for you on the bottom of the screen and a lot of information down there for you as well. All right, so let's take a look at the power outage map if we can right now.
We do have the power outage map. It's showing where the power is at right now. Obviously, Rob had that up as well. The purple is out. And if you have this interactive map that you've called up, whether we've sent it to you or we've gone to PG&E, if you can get on, as Ms. Holmes has alluded to, you can click on each one of these. And generally, as a rule, when you click on it, will show you the number of customers who are without power, expected time that power will be restored, in which case it will say, basically, we don't know at this point. We heard from Lindsay Polo at PG&E just a little bit ago, and obviously, Rob, they're monitoring the weather situation as well. It's probably going to be a wind event until the end of Thursday afternoon. Then they have to go back out and inspect the lines. So people are now thinking Friday-ish, if their power is out now, that's possibly when their power will come back on.
Right, and this is... I mean, let's just be honest about this. This is where we live. We live here because we love it. And this is going to be a rough couple of days, especially when if it's not just making the connection, because if it at your house, if you live in El Dorado Hills, you're in a fire-prone area, but you're not in the most fire-prone area. You are not in areas that have been well known to have large fires that grow out of control, but you're being affected by this in a downstream way because of power.
Okay, earlier we looked at Clear Lake. If you were watching us about 10 minutes ago, we looked at Clear Lake. We saw it on the power outage map. We actually, if you go to our Twitter page, there's a picture of what it looked like maybe 6 hours ago when all of the lights were on, and now how dark it is. So that really kind of paints the picture of what people are going through, what you can actually see if you get out and drive in the middle of the night. Thankfully, it's daytime right now.
Yeah, Lakeport is one of the areas affected, but pretty much everything. Sacramento going to be affected by this? I'm looking at your map, and you know, we're going to get the wind, but not the outage, eh?
Right, exactly. So we're getting a lot of questions, and remember, this is something that we are reacting to along with you. We're getting questions that maybe we haven't thought of or we haven't looked into. So let us know, and we're going to dig into it and get an answer to you. Either we'll answer it online or right now here on Facebook. So let me just show you what I have. One of the big questions is about SMUD. So I'm going to show you this in a couple of different ways, because remember, SMUD is its own independent power company. They They produce their own power. They deliver their own power. It is separate from PG&E. Now, at times, they may share lines. There's an exchange of power. They may be purchasing power. If they need more, they may be purchasing it from somewhere else, and then it may flow through some of these other transmission lines. So that's part of it as well. But as far as how it's laid out, a long time ago, Sacramento Municipal Utility District, SMUD, if you haven't heard of that before, it's a weird name, but that's what it is. You can see right in the middle, you see the power outages for PG&E. This is the PG&E map, but notice in the middle, it's not covered. And that's because this is the area that SMUD delivers electricity to. They make it and they deliver it roughly to this area. They have different zones because when there's power outages, if you live in a certain zone, they'll have more specific information. But I think a lot of people may not know where the power is coming from. SMUD creates its own power. It generates its own power. So again, it may flow through some of these transmission lines for PG&E, and SMUD has their own as well. But I think that this is a very important point. It's what's happening weather-wise, and for PG&E, a lot of their lines just happen to be in the mountains. They happen to be in the Feather River Canyon. They happen to be in very windy places, also all the way through the Bay Area hills. Very windy. The big fire near Santa Rosa, they estimate wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour in that zone. So these are transmission lines. You want it high up, you want it out of the way, you want to move the power and not worry about it. But the most exposed places happen to be where we get the strongest winds just from a meteorological sense. So these are canyons. The wind gets into a canyon and it speeds up. That's the Feather River Canyon. That's why the winds were so strong there for the campfire. Also exposed ridge lines. And again, for a lot of the PG&E customers, they have reservoirs. Great for recreation, great for water, but primarily PG&E has these reservoirs to make power. And power then gets distributed to their customers. This is one of the ways that SMUD creates power. This is a natural gas power plant. This is near Rancho Seca, the decommissioned nuclear power plant that's outside of Wilton. So this is in a very remote area. You see some of the solar panels that they have as well. So SMUD creates power just like any other power company from a variety of sources. You need the daytime power, you need the 24-hour power, that's your hydro power, wind power. They did have nuclear power at one point. They no longer have that. So this is natural gas, which can run 24 hours a day. So if they're generating in this location and their lines, if the weather is not going to be strong enough and they're not worried about their transmission lines being affected, then SMUD may not have any power outage issues. And again, here's another one. Their hydropower, they do have reservoirs in the Sierra. These are the ones there. You may have been camping at some of these places.
Yeah, I've camped at Rancho Seco. It's a nice little lake there.
Yeah, they made something of it.
I went into the lake and I came out glowing, but what the heck, right?
You got something there.
Just one side thing that may happen.
Yeah, a little benefit.
So this is one area. Look, nothing's set in stone. If there's strong winds where some of these reservoirs are and there's hydropower coming across, you see those dotted lines, those are transmission lines. If some of those are compromised or in danger, they may lose some power but be able to make it up in other cases because remember, the biggest draw on power usually is hot days and air conditioning. We're not going to have that situation today. So it's not a high power usage day.
Yeah.
Okay, quickly, can we get to some Facebook
Yeah,
questions?
please,
Okay,
go.
so one big question a lot of people are asking you, maybe you know the answer. If your power is out right now, do you pay for that? Is it prorated? That's something that somebody is concerned about as well,
I would be shocked if you're
right?
paying 1 cent. If you're not using power, you can't pay for power. I can't imagine, because it's all on a meter.
Yeah.
So I would be shocked if you paid a penny when you're off.
But don't think that you're going to get like a discount or a hookup
No,
because
no,
they
no,
shut
you
your
won't.
power off
No.
for 5 days. You're still going to be billed for them other days that you had electricity.
There you go. There's your
Thank
answer
you,
from
PG&E.
Kirsten.
That is true. And Sandy wants to know, she says, hey, this is a really bad situation for small businesses and families on a budget, especially with their groceries. So that's something she's concerned about. But then Melissa says, you know what? Okay, I get that this is really bad, but we have to think about saving people's lives. So it's definitely the big conversation. I think a lot of people also want to know about Stanislaus County and San Joaquin County and Stockton. When is their power going to go out?
So
Looks like around noon.
Yeah, PG&E has phase 2, which they've announced, which they may do.
Definitely San Joaquin County and definitely the counties down that way as well. So that's coming at noon. So there's been advance notice of that. Hopefully, if you do own a business, you've alerted people. If it's refrigeration, you have a generator or you have ice. But the train is coming down the tracks and it's headed your way.
Yeah, I want to send a shout out to Tony on our Facebook. Ask for a list of areas affected. It's pinned to this Facebook Live. You can click on the link where it's pinned and you can find out exactly where the power outages are right now and where they'll be coming later.
All right, more continuous coverage to come right here on ABC 10. And San Joaquin County are going to get power outages, but keep an eye on that interactive map, which we're going to show you right now. There it is. All the areas in purple are cities and towns currently without power. It does cover an area from San Francisco to the Sierra, and we can send you a link to this map if you would like. Just text the word power to 916-321-3310. Now keep in mind, as Kirsten mentioned, PG&E's website has been intermittently crashing. So many people are trying to get this information, wondering if it's rolling their way and whether or not they're going to be affected. You can see it is mostly to the east and west of Sacramento as we sit right now. So we continue to cover every angle of the story for you this morning. It is now 9:02. And Rob is in with a forecast.
Good morning to you. You can see everybody covering this story. We've got Carlos, we've got Giacomo, and we'll get to them in a second. But I just want to let you know, I was just looking at that map. There's going to be a lot of people without power with an unexpected day off that will be visiting the Sacramento region or Roseville or what have you, because those places still have power and people are going to be hungry. They're going to want something to do, so expect things to be busier, even if you're not affected by this power outage. Let me tell you something. I was standing out here for just a couple minutes. The wind is cranking, folks. I'm in Sacramento in the Gilmore backyard. This seed pod almost hit my head. So things are changing rapidly. So let's go ahead and take you through the weather story, because that's really where all of this starts. This power outage, pre-planned power outage, is because of the weather, and it's this. And you hear red flag warning fairly often. This level of red flag warning can actually be dissected even further. And on the west side of the valley, the National Weather Service is calling this extreme fire conditions. They have different categories. That's top level stuff that we haven't seen in a couple years. So with that said, this is going to start at different times. I think a lot of people in the Sierra foothills will be frustrated until late tonight, because that's when the wind should approach your neighborhoods. And then for the valley, it's already happening. We've seen it so far this morning. Sustained 20, 25 mile an hour winds, gusts upwards of 28 I've seen so far. One at the airport, one in South Sacramento, some stronger gusts toward Davis. Look toward north of Berryessa, wind gusts in the 30s. So again, this is moving in now. If you're not affected by power outages, or you're not too concerned about wildfire, let's say you live in a suburban area and you're surrounded by concrete, you still have to worry about stuff like this. Patio furniture, driving, air is going to be dirty, and plant debris everywhere you look, because of it's just that time of year as well. And remember, you could lose limbs, and you could see a localized power outage not related to the planned one. So a lot is going to happen today. I'll take you through all of these steps and when it's going to end as well. Back to you, Walt.
Okay, Rob, thank you. We do appreciate that. Let's check in now with Carlos Herrera. He's been in Auburn since early this morning, where tens of thousands of customers are in the dark there as well. Carlos?
Yeah, it's affecting the morning commute as well. Take a look here. We're right along Highway 49 and Dry Creek Road. Traffic is backed up for about a mile south. Also backed up 8 miles north, Highway 49, up until you catch I-80. You can see the cones set up here, barricades here as well, definitely causing a headache for drivers. Of course, we know that this is a big commuter town, so people drive to Sacramento to get to work. Also impacting them is those closures at those gas stations. All of them are closed in the city of Auburn. This is the busiest gas station along Highway 49. In fact, it's the main one that people see before they head out Auburn and head north on Highway 49. We spoke with commuters who were practically left stranded this morning.
Well, are we supposed to go down the hill and go to work? I don't even know how far this extends. I don't even know where the power is on. Is there power on in Sac?
It's kind of a bummer, because there is no gas stations open right now, so it's really an issue right now.
We spoke with the gas station owner. He was here at around midnight to kind of get things prepared for this planned power shutoff. He expects to be without power for the rest of the week. He says it's an inconvenience for him because he's going to lose money, but he says his biggest concern is the drivers who have to drive to Rockland, 15 miles out, to fill up this morning. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, a lot of people came to you, Carlos. They were on E and then had to go from Auburn to Rockland on E. I can only imagine what that drive was like. So, right?
Yeah, definitely a concern for people. A lot of people were in a rush. They said, well, where do I go now? Rockland, 15 miles out. Let me grab my phone, call my boss and say, I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
Well, my boss doesn't want me to get to work anymore. So, again, a big confusion here.
Yeah, that other guy you talked to says, hey, is the power on in SAC. Nobody seemed to know. A lot of confusion. Carlos, thank you. We will check back. All right, let's go to Giacomo Luca, who is live at the Cal OES headquarters with a meeting of the minds there. Giacomo?
Well, that's right, Walt. There are all kinds of agencies from across the state, both from the government and both private, such as PG&E, Caltrans, the Department of Health, the National Guard, Cal Fire, CHP, really you name it, anyone who would respond to a crisis and help manage emergencies across the state. They're all here, very much have their minds all together, just looking at everything that's going on with this specific weather pattern that's coming in, and of course the potential danger for wildfire. First, I want to bring in though Kyle with Caltrans to talk about, obviously with some of there are going to be some potential issues in terms of driving when the power does go out, and what can you tell us about that?
So some people may not realize that with over 30 counties potentially being impacted by the PSPS, the Public Safety Power Shutoff, that one of the unexpected things might be that traffic lights could actually go dark. Traffic lights, we have thousands all over the state that we help manage, along with our districts and partners. And those thousands of lights up in Northern California, they could go dark, and we want to make sure people know that if you approach a light that is dark or flashing, but mainly dark, you need to treat it as a stop sign. If you approach an intersection, you're not sure what to do, treat it as a stop sign. You know, these are crazy times, and we know that everybody's trying to prepare as best they can for these wildfires, potential wildfires. But here at Caltrans, we just want people to know that we're trying to keep everybody safe. Safety is our top priority. And if you approach an intersection where a light is dark, treat it as a stop sign. You may run into emergency personnel that are there too. You know, defer to them. But if you come to a dark intersection, please treat those stoplights as stop signs.
Yeah, certainly as these warnings come in, we want to make sure that everybody is safe, but also calm and collected during these situations. Thanks so much. I really appreciate you spending the time with us today.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Thank you.
And of course, we're going to be updating you with all the folks here at Cal OES throughout the morning. And for now, we'll send it back to you.
Yeah, Giacomo, you had just shared with me on Slack, and it's a question a lot of people are asking. Once the wind event ends, which could be late Thursday afternoon, how many days could it be before folks' power comes back on?
So I was speaking with PG&E officials just moments ago. They say that really for this initial storm, they're expecting about 3 days. And that's just the storm. Then you have to think about the time that it takes for crews to get back out there and inspect all the lines to make sure that power is safe to turn back on. That could take between 24 and 48 hours, at least they hope. So the goal would be, at least with this upcoming storm and power shutoff, 5 days is what everybody should expect for. Of course, it could go longer, but crews are really going to be working hard to make sure that it gets done and power is back turned on within at least 5 days.
All right, for the very latest on that, thank you, Giacomo Luca. Wow, for people who lost power at midnight, it could be through the weekend. That is a possibility. Giacomo, thank you. A lot of areas without power trying to decide whether to keep schools open during the outages. Classes are canceled for a number of schools, including Amador County Unified, El Dorado Union, Rescue Union, Stony Creek Joint Unified, some schools in Marysville Joint Unified, Big Lagoon, Southern Humboldt Unified, Esparto Unified, and the Pollock Pine School District. In the Bay Area, we've also learned classes are canceled for Solano County Community College, UC Berkeley, Mills College. We're also keeping tabs on all the school districts in the area. You can find the updated list at our website, abc10.com. Kirsten.
All right, it is 9/11 on a Wednesday. PG&E has opened resource centers in the communities that lost power. They're free places to go to charge your phone and get you some AC. They have room for 100 people at each location, and they're going to be open till 6 o'clock this evening for as long as these outages last. We have the full list of locations that you can visit on our website, abc10.com. Now, these PG&E power shutoffs are limited to Northern California, but hundreds of thousands more could lose power in Southern California today, too. Southern California Edison says it may shut off power to 173,000 customers because of their elevated fire danger, with more than 50,000 of those outages in Los Angeles County. That means millions of people could be in the dark for days. But does PG&E really need to turn off the power to prevent another forest fire? What will it take to get the lights back on? We'll take a look.
Hundreds of thousands of PG&E customers in Northern California are without power. What you're looking at now is a PG&E outage map. Every purple dot is a community in the dark. At the last check, more than 500,000 customers, now 800,000 customers, are without power. We can send you a link to this map. Just text POWER to 916-321-3310. Click on, check it out. It will also provide you information when you click on about how many people are out and when the power is expected to be back on, in which case it will say, we don't know yet. More than 100,000 students across 50 school districts have the day off. School leaders struggle to decide whether or not to hold class that has no power in the school. We have a full list of school closings on our website, abc10.com. PG&E has resource centers in the communities without power. They're free places to charge your phone and get some air conditioning, perhaps. But there's only room for 100 people at each location. They've been open since 8 o'clock this morning. They'll be open until 6 o'clock tonight for as long as the outages last, which could be days. Look for a list of locations on our website. All right, let's bring Rob back in. And Rob, obviously, at last the conversation we had, Sacramento, which is not one of the places that has any dots on it, is now getting a fair amount of wind.
Right, fair amount of wind, but it all, it depends on what, say, SMUD thinks of the wind speed, the low humidity, and how its transmission lines are faring with all of this. Because, it just so happens PG&E has a lot of these big power lines in very, very windy areas. And I want to make this point one more time because we're hearing this constantly. This is the question. Why is the power off in my house in Auburn or Placerville or Chico when it's not that windy? And the reason why is this. We're seeing some wind speeds already ramp up, as we expected, and certainly near Sacramento, almost 30 miles an hour. So it's showing up. But remember, the power at your house is almost always generated somewhere else. Then it has to go to a transmission line. I layered on the red lines here on a map so you can see where the power moves around the state. Often, especially in the Sierra foothills, it's hydropower. It's dams and how the water flows through, turns a turbine, you get electricity, it goes into a transmission line, and then it comes to your neighborhood, your community. If there's severe weather, strong winds that could compromise these lines anywhere along this red line, and they are almost always in windy areas anyway, in canyons and passes and ridge tops, and they're exposed. You may have an interruption there, which then cuts off power coming to you. So that's one of the disconnects, because it's not what's happening in your neighborhood. It's the whole system has to work together, and it's very complicated. Let me give you a perfect example. The morning that the campfire broke out in Paradise, it was not that windy there. It was a nice morning. It was a little cool and breezy, but it wasn't bad. But just right around the corner in the Feather River Canyon, 70-mile-an-hour winds. You know what happens next. So again, it's not your house, it's what's happening with these lines down the line. We've got 50s and 60s this morning. The wind's definitely moving in. We're getting some wind gusts in Modesto right now. 70s for highs. A blustery, weird day because yesterday we're at 90 degrees. So let's time out the wind. Later on today is more wind in the valley. And then finally in the evening, you'll know what this wind event is for the Sierra foothills, as it's going to be gusty. And again, some of these gustiest winds may not be in Auburn, but maybe just upstream where some of these power lines are. My biggest concern is overnight Wednesday to Thursday, because people will be sleeping. The power will be off. It will be dark. Communication may be compromised in some locations, and that's when I expect the strongest winds to be. So even though it's tough and we're going to be exhausted by the end of this, pay attention Wednesday night to early Thursday. That's when I see the strongest winds in Northern California. Thursday afternoon, late in the day, the winds should start to slow down. Better weather and no fire weather for this upcoming weekend. Over to you.
All right, thank you for that, Rob. 9:19 right now. This morning, you're either waking up in the dark or you know someone without power. But why are these outages actually happening? PG&E was in federal court yesterday to talk about the shutoffs. Now, the utility company was found guilty after the 2019 San Bruno gas explosion, which killed 8 people. PG&E is under court supervision during its 5-year probation. As ABC 10's Brendan Ritterman explains, the judge put out a lot of pressure on PG&E to shut off the power during windstorms.
The reason for all these massive shutoff plans is simple. PG&E's power grid can't be trusted to be safe in bad wind. All you got to do is look at the last 2 years when state investigators say PG&E power equipment sparked fires that killed 107 people, including the Camp Fire, the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in state history. The judge handling PG&E's probation almost ordered the company to shut off power lines whenever the wind speed got to a certain level. He didn't do that. Instead, the judge left it up to PG&E to decide when to cut the power. PG&E says it'll factor in the weather, the dryness of fuels, and how many people live in a given area before making the call. Meantime, the company is inspecting its whole power grid and says it's fixing problems with the lines and also trimming back the trees. But PG&E's court-ordered monitor did a whole bunch of surprise inspections this summer to double-check the company's safety work. Those inspections flagged hundreds of problems with the tree trimming job and with PG&E's records to keep track of it. PG&E says it's now making more improvements. The judge said today he looks forward to seeing how this week's shutoff plan plays out. The judge says the goal is for PG&E's power grid to someday be trustworthy enough to, quote, operate safely 100% of the time. But for now, the shutoffs, in the judge's view, are, quote, more prudent than leaving the power on and burning down an entire county.
That was Brandon Ritterman. Hundreds of thousands of PG&E customers are without power right now. What about folks who have SMUD? Are they okay? What the experts are saying about that next. California, but people in Sacramento County don't have PG&E. So what about them? Are they in danger of losing power? ABC 10's Chris Thomas talked to Chris Vestal from Sacramento Metro Fire to get tips for people who are not in the areas where the power is being shut off.
Captain, talk to us. What do we need to know? First of all, we've got this red flag warning, the potential for as many as 800,000 PG&E customers to be without power. This is a big deal.
It's a very big deal. We're going to have winds from 15 to 20 miles per hour through the Sacramento region. We have fuels that are super dry, super ready for combustion. So we need everybody to be very fire safe. Think about that when you're towing trailers, that you don't have your chains dragging. Don't throw your cigarettes out your window. It's some stuff we always say, but now it's even more critical. Don't think that you're going to go out and do any defensible space, lawn mowing, or anything else that might cause a metal blade to hit a rock and cause a spark. It will ignite a fire. And with these dry conditions, low humidity, dry grasses, it will cause a fire spread. The other thing, you mentioned 800,000 customers without power. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of addresses. There's absolutely going to be people within that range that have medical problems, who rely on electricity to keep their medications at a certain temperature, their oxygen devices. So if you're one of those people, consider relocating during this potential power outage, or make sure you have backup power. Also, if you're in these areas, make sure you have battery-powered radios, and something simple, charge your cell phones immediately before you go to bed tonight. Give them as much power as possible.
You know, the interesting thing is we've been hearing about, how do you notify people if you've got an emergency, if there are evacuation orders, if the power is out, what should people do to make sure that they're still getting notices?
AM radio, all that's going to be broadcast on that. It's going to come right away. It's going to be immediate. And here's the other thing. Listen for the sirens in some of the neighboring counties to Sacramento. Some of the sheriff's departments have used different sirens to notify when it's time to evacuate.
All right, really good information. I just want to talk to everybody else that doesn't have a power outage, not planning on getting it. You don't live in an urban wildfire interface. You're not next to a grassy field or anything like that. You live in suburbia. You still have to pay attention to the weather because you've got big light things at your house most likely, and it's going to easily take off with the wind building today. Maybe it already has. Driving, especially anything east-west. I'm especially concerned over the Yellow Causeway, I-5 between Woodland and Sacramento. That's a straight up east-west. Remember, the winds are out of the north, so that's a crosswind. So just as you're driving, pay attention to yourself and also any trucks near you. They don't want to drift over, but they may with the strong winds. Air's going to be dirty and dusty, and it's not great. And plant and tree debris everywhere. Even if you live in an area not expecting a planned power outage, you may still have one. At any point, with the strong winds, a tree branch could come down on a power line, and that's going to be a concern for everybody. And remember, this is not all about power lines. This is about a fire weather warning, because a spark from anywhere, it doesn't matter where it comes from. If it starts a fire, that fire is going to grow quickly with the dry, windy conditions that we're going to have. A spark from mowing, I don't think anyone's going to be doing that, but just be aware of that. Arson, unfortunately, this does happen. Hot car exhaust, I've seen everything. Welding, a tire blowout. Fluke freak accidents. Mendocino Complex was a metal stake into a hornet's nest. All of these can be accidents. You got to watch for everything because this soon could turn into a fire story at any moment. Carlos?
I'm live in Auburn this morning where at least 16,000 PG&E customers are without power and with no expected restoration in sight. Coming up on Morning Blend, I'll tell you how business owners and drivers are dealing with these planned power outages. Send it over to you, Joaquin.
And here at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, there are crews from all over the state, agencies, many different agencies being represented, and they are all focused on keeping people safe through this high wind and red flag warning event. We'll have the latest coming up.
Is breaking news on Morning Blend.
We're going to have to relocate until this power outage is done.
Conditions being forecast historically have led to catastrophic wildfires, and PG&E Meteorology is actively monitoring the weather for this situation around the clock.
All right, so overnight, PG&E shut off electricity to 500,000 customers in Northern California. This all in an effort to prevent wildfires. It is the biggest planned power shutoff in state history. Everybody is talking about this thing all over the country. Governor Newsom says people should be outraged. So this morning, we're asking you, are you angry about these public safety power shutoffs? A lot of you are saying on our Facebook page, yeah, you were not very happy with PG&E at all about this situation.
Brandon Ritterman joins us now. Brandon, you've been on top of this stuff for a long time.
Yeah.
Fire, power, money.
Yep.
The governor weighing in that people should be outraged. I wondered about that. Is at this point in time for the governor to be saying that? Speak to that.
I mean, it's certainly interesting when you consider the fact that we confronted him about the political money that he took as donations from PG&E, which he's refused to give back, is more than 8 out of 10 state lawmakers, by the way. So this isn't just a one party, one politician
Correct.
thing. PG&E is heavily invested into the politics of the state of California. They have paid to keep themselves at the top, the apex of this power scheme that they've got going on. And that's an organic monopoly that sort of developed over 100 years. But it's really, this moment right now is showing us that the lack of maintenance and the lack of care put into maintaining those power lines and making sure that they're safe enough to operate when we get windy days, the lack of that work is really coming home to roost right now. And I was just in federal court yesterday where PG&E was talking to a criminal judge because they were convicted of 6 federal felonies tied to that 2010 San Bruno gas explosion. And the judge says he's looking forward to seeing how this shutoff plays out. He's been putting a lot of pressure on PG&E to do these shutoffs because in his view, I mean, he said it again yesterday, it's better than, quote, burning down an entire county.
You're right.
And we've seen 107 people die in multiple fires that were blamed on PG&E equipment in the last 2 years. So yeah, the shutoffs, they're no fun.
No.
People are going to have a rotten day or days if this thing stretches.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's the lesser of evils is what we're stuck with right now.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned stuck with, because, you know, you brought up a really good point earlier. Right now, this is what we have. Now, 10 years from now, we won't accept this as a people from this power company.
It doesn't feel first world.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line, it doesn't. We live in supposedly the most innovative state, you know, and we've got all this tech in our backyard and we're doing all these great things and we can't have the lights come on with reliability, with our own weather.
Yeah,
people will not sit for it.
No. We understand why, but people are inconvenienced because of what might happen, not what is happening. So as a business model, you would think this could happen 10, 15 times a year where towns are shut down, and you multiply that times how many years, there has to be another way of doing this.
Well, and it comes down to trust. And right now, trust in PG&E is in short supply, and trust in the safety of their equipment is pretty much non-existent. That is why we have arrived at this moment.
Yeah, okay. Brandon, thank you for all the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
With letting people know what's going on. We have an outage map up for you.
Yeah, we do.
And all the areas in purple are cities and towns right now that are without power. So this all started at midnight. And so it's going to continue. There's going to be another round of outages coming up, we believe, at noon. So we're waiting for that to see who's next. That would be the second wave of outages, and there's a scheduled third wave of outages, which is the always TBA, where PG&E is going to reassess the situation and then let us know what's going to happen at that point based on where things are at that point.
All right, so a lot of people are asking, when is my power going to go out? When will it come back on? We have an outage map for you. You can get that outage map, text to you, 916-321-3310. We will hook you up with everything you need to know. And right now, let's get to our team coverage this morning for you because we got your back. ABC 10's Giacomo Luca is live at California's Governor's Office of Emergency Services. That's in Mather. But first, we're going to check in with Carlos Herrera. He's in Auburn. That is one of those cities that has been hardest hit by these shutoffs. Carlos, we've been watching you all morning. It was so dark outside when the power was out. It's brighter now.
Yeah, it's more of the same here. More confusion, more inconveniences here in Auburn. We're at a gas station off of Highway 49 and Dry Creek Road. Many impacts by this power shutoff since midnight. Here's the first and most important one of all. This is the main gas station off of Highway 49, the one that people see right before they head out of Auburn and head north on Highway 49 to catch I-80. A big inconvenience because it's been closed since midnight. We've seen a lot of people coming in and out trying to fill up as they head to work this morning. They're not able to, and unfortunately the closest gas station to here is Rockland. That's a 15-mile drive. Another inconvenience is the traffic on Highway 49. It is backed up 1 mile north and then 8 miles south, so getting on to 80 is a big problem. Another inconvenience, business owners. Take a look at this gentleman. He's been here all morning. He's now piling up stuff and loading them onto his pickup truck, trying to save as much as he can. He's been at it all morning long. We spoke with drivers earlier this morning who were pretty much stranded. Here's what they said.
I live in Sacramento and I work in Grass Valley, so I put gas here every morning and there is no gas stations are open right now.
You're running on empty, so now what?
So I'm gonna wait. I don't know what's gonna happen. I gotta call my boss and see what I can do.
I'm not even aware how far down the hill do you got to go to get power? How far down in the hill do you got to go to get signal and make a phone call? It's pretty confusing, and we didn't get any warning. The first I heard about this was yesterday.
Most people we spoke with told us that they were only notified about these planned outages yesterday, so they didn't have enough time to plan ahead. Take a look at this business here. Again, closed. You see the employees standing outside, cones are in place, people trying to buy stuff. That's not happening. They're expecting to be closed for the rest of the week. Again, inconvenience and more inconveniences for folks here in Auburn.
Carlos Herrera live in Auburn, as he's been all morning long, talking to the people most affected. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carlos. Let's go to Giacomo Luca. And Giacomo is over at the Cal Office of Emergency Services. Yeah. He's been talking to not only Cal OES, but he's also been talking to PG&E. Giacomo?
Well, that's right, Walt. There are a number of organizations from really all across the state, many representatives. They're in this room right behind me. They represent organizations like the National Guard, CAL FIRE, of course, Cal OES, the Health Department. Lots of different organizations are here monitoring the situation really across the state. But I want to talk about one organization in specific, and that's the California Utility Emergency Association. I want to talk about what they're doing and essentially what they do. They represent a group of California organizations that represent all of our utilities, so gas and electric, water, telecommunications. And what they're doing right now is essentially they have crews on standby all across the state, as well as some crews in other states. And what they're doing is trying to get permitting so then they can bring in some crews from out of state, such as bringing in generators, bringing in pop-up cell towers in the event that when this power outage affects such a large population that they can bring in other services and potentially even power things like cell towers if cell towers do go down and they run out of even their backup power. So folks here are really planning as much as they can and as best as they can to prepare for what is expected to be at least several days of power out for several 100,000 customers across the region. Back to you.
All right, thank you, Giacomo. That's a lot of information. They're definitely getting ready. A lot of people affected here.
Yes. All right. Let's see what's happening now with our forecast. Rob is in. Rob, the winds certainly have picked up in the last hour.
Oh yeah, I've got plant debris all over the place back here in the Gilmore backyard. This is something we're just getting into, folks. You hear the wind on my microphone. You can see the plants blowing around. This is going to be something that peaks tonight. And for more places in the Sierra foothills, it hasn't been that windy yet. And I know that everyone's frustrated because when it's not windy where you're at, this doesn't seem to make any sense. But it's all the wind in the higher elevations that's happening right now where some of these big transmission lines are and what's coming that you want to get ahead of it. So it's frustrating, but there is a method to some of this, as enormously frustrating as it is. Okay, folks, this is what I'm talking about. Everyone's going to be covered by this, the huge area of a red flag warning, but it doesn't really kick in weather-wise for the Sierra foothills until about 8 o'clock tonight. It's already ongoing for the valley floor and the Bay Area, and we've seen some gusts, 28 miles an hour, pretty consistently in and around Sacramento and starting to spread into Stockton and Modesto as well. Notice where the winds are calm. Again, What's frustrating is that the wind is lined up perfectly for the valley. It is hugging the valley floor, and that's where it's the strongest, but it's struggling a little bit higher up in elevation. But give it some time, and that wind field will expand, and it will include some of those other places. You know, yesterday we were close to 90 degrees, today 70s, with some wind speeds ramping up. So let's time this out. When are we really going to see it kick in? Well, certainly all day long it's going to be windy. By tonight, it expands to more areas. Notice that the Sierra gets looped into this, and this is the middle of the night when it's dark. If a fire does start, because remember, this is all about fire. I know right now it's about power, but this ultimately could turn into a fire story at any point today and certainly tonight. I'm concerned about that. Last time we saw weather like this for this region, 2017 October, that's when the wine country fires and the fire near Santa Rosa broke out in the middle of the night. I'm worried about that scenario, so you have to monitor this stuff 24 hours a day because I think it's going to be worse when people are sleeping. Walt?
Oh yeah, you've been talking about that, Rob. Overnight, it's going to be on. Thank you. We did talk to some folks in Auburn before the lights went out. A lot of people were stocking up at hardware stores, looking for extension cords, water coolers, generators, which were pretty much sold out everywhere. Some people saying they didn't feel prepared.
We were kind of caught off guard and hadn't really thought that the power was going to go out, and then, you know, we got all the warnings and everything, but we just kind of thought, oh, it's not going to go out this time because we're a little too far south.
It's something that they need to do because it would help safety measure wise, but overall it'll upset a lot of people. I mean, there's going to be power out for who knows how long. They don't even have an estimated time.
Good point. It could be days. That Home Depot in Auburn was expected to receive 40 new generators this morning, which will probably go very quickly. Kirsten?
9:42 right now. A lot of school districts in the affected areas had to decide whether to keep schools open throughout these outages. Classes are canceled for Amador County Unified, El Dorado Union, Rescue Union, Stony Creek Joint Unified, some schools in Marysville Joint Unified, Big Lagoon, Southern Humboldt Unified, Esparto Unified, and Pollock Pines Elementary School District. Over in the Bay Area, we've learned classes are canceled for Solano County Community College, UC Berkeley, and Mills College. Now, we're going to keep tabs on all the school districts in our area, and you can find an updated list on our website, abc10.com, where we've got you covered. Walt?
All right. Thank you. PG&E has resource centers in the communities without power this morning. Free places to charge your phone and get some AC, but there's only room for 100 at each location. They opened at 8 this morning. They'll be open till 6 tonight, and they'll be open as long as the power outages last, which may be a while. Look for a list of the locations on our website, abc10.com.
All right, so 9:43 right now. Lots of people are thinking about electricity or the lack thereof and fire danger. But as ABC 10's Lena Howland found out, we can't forget about how water conservation comes into play in times like this too.
I'm Lena Howland in Calaveras County, where they are desperately trying to get this message out there. If your power is shut off, you must conserve water. They're recommending no extra use of water, no washing cars, filling up pools, or watering lawns. They're also urging customers to turn off their landscaping systems, take only short showers, and flush the toilet only when necessary. They say wastewater is their biggest concern, coming from showers, washing dishes, dishwashers, laundry machines, and toilets. So if their backup generators fail, it's possible that waste could back up into your home or even into the street in your neighborhood.
You know, that could be a pretty significant impact to the community. So we're going to do everything we can to avoid that, but we really need the help of the community to conserve water to take the pressure off of those facilities.
This water district has spent months preparing, strategically placing backup generators like this one across the area. But in the event that one of these fails, they say it is critical to conserve your water.
Lena, thank you. PG&E is regulated by the state, but the reality is the state doesn't exactly keep a close eye on the utility's day-to-day operations. We'll explain why PG&E is just supposed to police itself. Next on Morning Blend.
Welcome back, everybody. 9:47 on a Wednesday. We're in the middle of a historic blackout in Northern California. Millions of people are without power this morning after a massive PG&E public safety power shutoff. A three-part series from ABC 10, 1 year in the making, Fire Power Money, breaks down California's wildfire crisis into its core elements. Now, in the series, we talk about PG&E's size and the lack of inspectors to oversee the monopoly. Here's Brendan Ritteman with more.
It sounds all well and good to say that PG&E is regulated, but that might lead you to believe that the state keeps a close eye on what the company's doing on the ground to make sure it's safe. It doesn't. Consider this. PG&E has 100,000 miles of power lines above ground in California. How many miles is that? Picture the entire U.S. interstate highway system. Now double it. That's how many miles we're talking. Imagine how many people it takes to police those miles, and consider this. In all of Northern California, the PUC employs only 12 engineers to do inspections. That means each one would need to be in charge of 8,300 miles. But those 12 people don't only cover PG&E, they handle all the utilities, like phone lines too. The point is, no one from the state actively polices PG&E's work to make sure it's all being done safely. Our system is built on the idea that utilities will police themselves because it's in their own best interest. And yet, we keep getting burned. Governor Newsom is using that same mentality. When I asked him what might trigger a government takeover, he dodged with this.
It's in their interest at this stage to wake up to the new reality.
It's a huge crisis, and we believe everyone has the right to understand it. That's why we made all 3 episodes really easy for you to watch and share at your own pace. Just go to firepowermoney.com or type in Firepower Money in YouTube. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, that's the top of everybody's mind. It's a great series worth catching up on all of the comings and goings with the fire season and everything connected to it. So today I do want to start with the weather because that's what's triggering all of this. It is windy right now, but notice that it's not windy everywhere. Then you would see colors, really bright colors all over the map. We have calm conditions in Santa Rosa. We've got calm conditions in Auburn and Placerville right now. So why would the power be shut off there? Well, it's in how this all connects. We are seeing the strongest winds in the valley right now, the lowest elevations. It's cold air, it's funneling down low, and then it's just scooting along the bottom. As the day warms up, that wind speed is going to ramp up for higher elevations, and eventually by tonight we're going to see it spread out to more locations, including the foothills on both sides of the valley. But why would the power be shut off at your house if it's not windy there? That's the disconnect that needs to be addressed today, many times over, because that's the #1 question we've been getting all morning, and I assume we'll get all the rest of today. You have to understand where your power is coming from, because it's not the weather at your house, it's the weather and extreme weather anywhere along these big transmission lines. So your power may be coming partially from hydropower from a dam in the Sierra. It goes to a transmission line and ultimately comes to some of these larger communities downstream. If there's a problem anywhere along here, power maybe have to cut off because they're worried about arcing. So again, this perfect scenario of disconnect happened recently for the Camp Fire. Paradise, I was working that morning and I remember it was not that windy in places like Paradise. However, for the Feather River Canyon where the fire originated from an arcing transmission line, it was 70-mile-per-hour winds. So far away, the weather really mattered, even though it was fine downstream. And ultimately, we know what happened with the Camp Fire and the communities affected. So I know it's a disconnect, but maybe we can connect the dots a little bit better today. I still would be frustrated. I hear you. 50s and 60s this morning. We've got 70s this afternoon. Let's time out the winds because this is when it starts to matter for more of us. We skip ahead to later on tonight. Winds are starting to expand for more areas. Middle of the night is when it really kicks in. Higher elevations, lower elevations, and the strongest winds I think will be in the middle of the night. And let's face it, a lot of us are asleep, we're exhausted, we've not had power for a long time. That's when we need to pay the most attention because I know it's a power outage story right now, but it very soon, at any minute, could become a fire story, and that's what we're all concerned about the next 2 days. Thursday evening, the winds start to slow down. We'll be right back.
here. I'm Carlos Herrera, live in Auburn, where at least 16,000 PG&E customers are without power this morning. It was shut off at midnight, and that's causing a lot of inconveniences for people. Traffic is jammed on Highway 49 for miles, and businesses are closed. And of course, pumps at gas stations are out of service, forcing drivers to go about 16 miles to Rockland to fill up. It's causing a lot of confusion here. They're hoping things get resolved really soon. Giacomo?
Well, I'm at the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services, where folks are from all across the state, all kinds of agencies from National Guard to CAL FIRE and the California Highway Patrol. They are all currently monitoring the situation in terms of the red flag warning and high wind event that's coming into the area. We're going to have more coming up later on in our shows.
All right, thank you for that, Giacomo. 9:55 right now. Here's what you need to know before you head out the door. PG&E has resource centers in the communities that are without power this morning. There are free places to charge your phone and get some AC, because you know when you're without electricity, there's a lot that you got to think of. There's only room for 100 people at each location, and they've been open since about 8 o'clock this morning. They'll be there until 6 tonight for as long as these outages last. For a list of locations where you can go, again, 100 people at each location, you can go to our website, abc10.com, where we have that as a resource. We have a listing of schools that are closed as a resource. Everything you need to know at our website, abc10.com.
All right, take a look at the map here. This is the PG&E map of outages. We've been posting this all morning long, and as Kirsten mentioned, Rob as well, these outages started at midnight, and we're expecting another round of outages at noon today, and then there'll be a third round of outages, which PG&E is saying is TBA. Brandon, what are you hearing about this?
Yeah, I mean, right now it's just sort of wait for the weather conditions, right? I mean, one of the fascinating things about this to me is PG&E's monopoly turf is ginormous. It's the size of 4 Oklahomas physically, or by population rather, the size of Oklahoma by just physical size. So they cover this vast territory, and what they'll tell you is they're trying to monitor the weather at various points throughout that territory, because they cover all kinds of different ecosystems from the coast all the way up to the high Sierras, and the metric is different for all those places. The part that really fascinates me is we've basically left this up to PG&E as public policy.
Self-policing mostly.
There was a federal judge who darn near said, when the wind hits this speed, you shall cut it off. He decided not to do that. He left it up to them. Right now, bottom line, there's a senior vice president at PG&E who's the ultimate, the buck stops with him.
Yeah.
A guy with a business degree is in charge of power for millions
And he's
of people.
going to err on the side of caution, which is what we're in the middle of right now. More coming up live on Facebook,
Live
coming
on
up in
Facebook
just a
and
moment.
abc10.com. continuing coverage of this historic, this massive PG&E public safety power shutoff. It started last night around midnight, and almost 12 hours later, it's 10 o'clock, so 10 hours later, it's still going. If you're just now joining us on Facebook or abc10.com or our ABC10 app, thank you for watching. We're going to have you the latest information that you need to know to protect your families, to let you know if the power is out or back on at your home, everything you need to know. Okay, so nearly 800,000 customers. And we say customers because according to PG&E, one customer could represent 3 people. So up to 2.4 million people could be without power across Northern California as we start this event and end it. And that's because of dangerous fire weather conditions, lots of people affected. So many people affected that our very own Brittany Begley. You are without power. Her son is here. Her dog is here. They are like
everyone
camping
is here
out
today.
Here at work. How are you coping?
You know what? So we knew it was coming, right? But at midnight, it goes out, your power. So you wake up, you're hot, you're sweaty.
Ouch.
I didn't sleep because you think, oh, I have to work in the morning. And what happens if my alarm doesn't go off, like my phone, and I got to juggle no school. So I had to take my son to school. And my gosh, what happens if, you know, my boss or something gets upset or he throws a scene? So I've just been like a million miles per hour. I just spent $150 on groceries. What am I going to do? And I want to just kick myself and be like, why did I buy those groceries when I knew this was coming?
Let me tell you this one tip. If you have groceries, and if coming from the South, we had storms all the time, so we grew up and there were a lot of power outages. Keep your refrigerator and your freezer doors closed for as long as possible. You don't have to open those things. Try to like eat out of, like we ate out of the can or we ate out our non-perishable food items. Not opening the freezer or the refrigerator door will save you and your groceries and that $150 you just spent. So that way everything will be in there because it'll stay kind of refrigerated while we go through this. But over 5 days, I think you're going to have to throw some stuff away. Brittany, there was a Facebook question. I forget their name, but they said, how much notice did people who lost power, how much notice were you given?
You know, we got text. So I get this text updated. I got one yesterday, like, okay, this could happen. And then I got another one saying, hey, this is happening at midnight. So then that's when around, I would say 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I started thinking, all right, I got to think about a babysitter. And do I call off from work or do I bring my son to school? We had to have that conversation. And I was like, when you work in news, there are a lot of people just like us. You have to come to work. This is why we are in the news. It's not to look pretty and talk about Facebook. It's being here for you when you really need it. And so I was like, all right, bring kids, so let's go.
Another thing we want to point out is that her son is here because school is closed. So there are a couple of school outages. You can go to our website, abc10.com, and get that information. You can text us, 916-321-3310. We have everything you need to know. We definitely have your back. If you take a look at your screen right now, this is our outage map. The purple indicates places that are without power because of the public safety power shutoff.
So here's the deal. So midnight, as we've been telling you, more than 500,000 customers without power. So these are places like Auburn, Fairfield, El Dorado, areas you're going to see problems maybe for the next 5 days. Now, the biggest question we have now on Facebook is San Joaquin. When is that going to happen? When are we going to have problems with there? Of course, a lot of people want to know about Stockton. Well, that's going to happen around noon. So that's our biggest step. That's our next concern that we have is what do you do if you live in those areas and how long will you see delays? And then the third phase will happen to about 42,000 people, and that's going to be up to the best discretion of PG&E. So it's very fluid, that's for sure.
Yeah, I definitely want to hear back from people. You said you found out yesterday around 1. Is that enough time to prepare if you're going to be without power? Let us know on our Facebook page. We're live right now. Let us know in the comments. How much time did you have, and do you think just 24 hours is enough time to be without power for maybe up to 5 days?
No.
That's kind of scary. But for right now, because we have the public safety power cutoffs, it's weather related. We got to get an update of our weather from Carly. Carly, let us know what's going on right now because it's relatively calm with just a little wind in our area, right?
That's right. And as of early this morning, I was even outside walking my dog, and then you could already feel and see those winds picking up, rattling the trees. So it really did start as early as this morning. And that's when actually the red flag warning took effect. So even though a lot of people saw the power outages closer to midnight, we saw those winds beginning to pick up closer to about 4 or 5 a.m. and some of the foothills a little bit sooner, but really the wind's starting to pick up now. Now what we're looking at, some of those gusts could reach as high as 50 miles per hour. Currently, we'll expect to see it closer to about 25 mile per hour winds, but we're talking gusts the quick push of the winds moving through, not the sustained winds, the gusts of wind. Now, humidity could be as low as 6% for some areas, but most areas going to see anywhere from 10 to 20% when it comes to humidity. And when we talk about humidity, you know, it's the moisture in the air. How much moisture are we looking at? But here is the lack thereof. We're talking lack of moisture, so only about 10 to 20% of it in the air. So it's a very dry, bone dry out there, and we'll continue to see that throughout the next couple of days. And this is going to lead to extreme fire danger. Of course, we all know about how dangerous these fires can be in Northern California with how dry the grass is, and then the winds being the biggest factor of it all. Any little spark just can cause chaos. Now let's take a look at what we're looking at, because it's not just us in Northern California with red flag warning. We're talking Southern California and many areas across the desert Southwest, leading all the way toward areas near Texas even. So yeah, a lot of grassy areas, very dry weather from the summer. And here's also what we can expect. We're looking at the winds out of the northeast that's causing that fire danger. And as we take a closer look here, this is going to last for different areas around different times. So for our area closer to the Sierra, we could see this lasting until Thursday, 5 p.m. Now, at this point, this is tentative because these things can always be extended as we move into Friday. And we're also looking at Thursday, 11 a.m. closer to areas of the coastal range. So you're looking at some dry grass for those regions as well. And it's really extending very far south as even areas of Yosemite. So here's what we look at when we look at Fane winds, or how we know it here as the Diablo winds, the Southern California and Santa Ana winds. We're looking at a high pressure system that stays inland, a low pressure system offshore. Now, we're also looking at an upper level low. So we see a lot of some of this air from aloft, very high up, dropping quickly, and then those temperatures rising as they drop, which is the subsidence here. That is also bringing in very warm air and dry air to our region. So we'll see that a lot of those winds coming off from the east. So we typically see a lot of our air coming in offshore from the west toward the east, and that's where we see our weather patterns when it comes to low pressure systems shifting across the U.S. And we'll usually see a low that comes in off the Pacific, making its way all the way towards areas of Texas and even toward the Midwest. So that's a typical scenario. But right now what we're looking at is a high pressure inland, and then those winds coming off the coastal ranges and also coming off the Sierra, blowing the opposite direction, and that's where we see these strong winds. So let's take a look at how quick we can see some of these winds today. Now we're looking at winds right after 10 a.m. here, 21 miles per hour in Sacramento, 7 in Marysville, 21 in Fairfield. Rather calm for some areas, but of course we get these gusts every now and then, and they just push through very quickly. So that is also very dangerous because it's unpredictable. Now we're looking at 15 mile per hour winds as we begin to move through 7:30. This is just going to be a fluctuation up and down as we continue to move throughout the day and move through Thursday. Thursday morning, 27 mile per hour winds through Fairfield. So this is what we're looking at, is some of these spotted areas in orange. You're really starting to see the winds picking up, 31 in Fairfield. And of course, we're going to talk more about these weather conditions because it's not necessarily a hot day ahead, but we will expect to see these windy conditions really be the one to take over the weather for the next couple of days. So of course, this is also what helped cause some of that massive spread near Paradise, Santa Rosa fires, Napa areas, seeing those massive fires when we see these winds coming off the mountain. So of course, plan for the wind. Driving is going to be a little tricky for you, especially with those winds moving east to west. Now the air will be very dusty, a lot of pollen out there, so also protect yourself if you have allergies. And then of course, plant and tree debris could be everywhere. So a lot going on today when it comes to winds. We'll have more all on this and what you can expect in the coming days coming up, Brittany.
A lot of parents and schools trying to decide about, will school be open or closed because power outages. So that's something that we are going to watch throughout the week. A number of schools already canceled. Let me tell you the areas that it includes: Amador County, Unified El Dorado Union, Grass Valley School District, Schools and Programs, Rescue Union, Stony Creek Joint Unified, some schools in Marysville Joint Unified, and in the Bay Area, we've also learned classes are canceled: Solano County Community College and UC Berkeley. This is something we will update you bright and early tomorrow morning so that we can make sure parents are prepared, ladies.
All right, thank you for that. Okay, Carly, we understand that outages can be really confusing, and a lot of people are asking on Facebook, I don't have wind at my house. Why is my power out? And that is really frustrating.
Yeah, that can be frustrating. And I know that question had been a big concern as of yesterday.
Yeah.
And yesterday we didn't see the winds. We really didn't see the winds picking up until today, early this morning. Now the winds are going to continue to pick up throughout the day, and that is going to be the big concern here, because a lot of these winds, they didn't start yesterday. So even though you're not seeing them, maybe they're coming, and those wind gusts can pick up whenever they want. So we're really talking about how much wind comes off these mountains here. If you look at our graphic, we're looking at cool temperatures, but you can see just off of the Sierra there, we could see winds moving in as much as we want. So a lot of these winds will continue to pick up. And the thing about the power grid is that even if you're not seeing the extreme weather in your area, you're experiencing these shutoffs because you're part of a larger grid, and somewhere on that grid the weather is dangerous. In the past, this hasn't been the cause, but this year PG&E and the Public Safety Power Shutoff Plan involves both distribution lines and transmission lines. Now, transmission lines are the big metal towers that provide electricity to the entire region and act as the backbones of the grid. So, yeah, we're seeing a lot of these transmission lines, especially the PG&E ones. They're off toward areas of the Sierra, some of the grassy lands. That's where they have the big transmission lines. And the SMUD lines, well, they're mostly centered and service our area in the Sacramento Valley, so they're not a big concern, even though there are a few that lead up there. That's not going to be the biggest concern because PG&E's real extension there of power, when literally too, it also goes out toward the grasslands and areas of the Sierra.
Yeah, as I look on social media, a lot of people are like, I live in Sacramento. Am I going to be affected? The answer is probably not. If you are a PG&E customer, this is definitely going to affect you. All right. So Carlos Herrera is live in Auburn this morning. That's been one of the areas that's been really hard hit. We've been watching you since, like, I don't know, 4:30 this morning. It's been dark. Power's still out, and there is a lot of traffic behind you. Hey, Carlos.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, guess what? Power's still out this morning. At least 16,000 PG&E customers here in Auburn are without power today. This is Highway 49, right at Dry Creek Road. Let's show you the traffic because that's one of the many impacts by this planned power shutoff. Traffic is backed up for 1 mile north on Highway 49. But check this direction, south, backed up for 8 miles until you hit I-80. So people are really frustrated this morning trying to catch 80. That's not going to happen for at least another 30 minutes from here. Again, Dry Creek Road and Highway 49. This is one of the busiest roads in Auburn. And of course, we know that a lot of people commute to work from Auburn, specifically to Sacramento. So that's one of the many impacts today. Another inconvenience today are here at the pumps. All gas stations are closed here in Auburn. People driving from Grass Valley, Penn Valley, they're on empty. They're pulling up here to this gas station trying to gas up this morning. It's not happening. The closest gas station to Auburn is Rockland, and that's a good 16-mile drive. So you're facing about a 1 hour, I should say, in traffic to just gas up. A lot of people really just parked and gave up and said, well, there's nowhere I can gas up. Let's see what's next. We've also talked to business owners. They've also been impacted. The owner of this gas station was here at midnight today. He was trying to stock up on all the frozen goods to make sure that they don't really rot in. He says it's a big inconvenience for that as well. We'll send it back over to you.
Wow, just to see all the people still being active. I guess if you are without power at home, I'd get out in the streets too. I wouldn't want to be at the house hot with no air and no electricity. Thank you, Carlos. All right, so now we're going to check in with Giacomo Luca. He's at Cal OES, the Office of Emergency Services, their headquarters. Giacomo, tell us, what are they doing to prepare and how are they planning on helping people, all of these people without power?
Well, Kirsten, there are a number of officials from law enforcement, fire, public utilities, water, people from all across the state are here monitoring the conditions. Fortunately, there were no road closures. There were no evacuation orders in place. There are a couple of fires burning in the central part of the state, but nothing major. Of course, folks here are following up on those conditions and they are looking into it. And there is really just a sheer large scale of numbers in terms of people from all of those different agencies who are continuing to monitor the situation. They've been in briefings all day, back and forth. They're talking to each other. They're in meetings. They're pulling in resources just to prepare in terms of whether or not something they may need something such as generators, such as if they need water trucks, those sorts of things. They want to make sure that in the event of this power shutdown affecting any other services such as cell towers, they will have the resources available. So the level of planning here that has really gone into this is quite high, and crews and the officials that work with all of these different agencies, both in the private and government sector. They are prepared for this power shutdown and whatever may come as a result of it. Back to you.
Thank you for that, Giacomo. You've been out there with them all morning. We appreciate you staying out there. It's 10:30. It's been a long day. All right, so you are watching continuous coverage of PG&E's massive power shutoffs beginning last night. Nearly 800,000 customers all across California are expected to lose power because of dangerous fire weather conditions. That's millions of people. We have a list of all the communities impacted at the bottom of your screen. And we can also text PG&E's map to you. You just text the word power to 916-321-3310 and we'll send you the link. Now, we'll leave that number in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen for the entire show. And we got to tell you that outage map has had so many people try to access it all day that sometimes it's up, sometimes it's down. But there's a look at it right now. These are the outages right now. This is a live look at the map in real time on PG&E's website. The powered circles you see on your screen, those are where you have the public safety power shutoff. And that is those places that are affected by the power outages, all because of the dry, hot, windy now weather conditions. Now, PG&E has resources that don't have power this morning. They're free. And there are places that you can charge your phone, get some AC, use the restroom, anything that you would do that you would want to do if you had electricity. There's a room for 100 people at each location, and they've been open since 8 o'clock this morning. They're going to stay open until 6 o'clock tonight, every day for as long as the outages last in those areas. You can get a full list of locations on our website. Again, you know what it is. It's abc10.com. Now, to get the latest information on PG&E power shutoffs, you can download our app. We'll tell you about school closures, everything. We have it all right there for you to help you out. Now, what about Sacramento County? That's the question a lot of people are asking. PG&E is not the electric provider here, but could there be a ripple effect? That'd be scary, right? ABC 10's Chris Thomas spoke with Sacramento Fire to get some tips about how people in and out of the areas, what you guys need to know.
What do we need to know? First of all, we've got this red flag warning, the potential for as many as 800,000 PG&E customers to be without power. This is a big deal.
It's a very big deal. We're going to have winds from 15 to 20 miles per hour through the Sacramento region. We have fuels that are super dry, super ready for combustion. So we need everybody to be very fire safe. Think about that when you're towing trailers, that you don't have your chains dragging. Don't throw your cigarettes out your window. It's stuff we always say, but now it's even more critical. Don't think that you're going to go out and do any defensible space, lawn mowing, or anything else that might cause a metal blade to hit a rock and cause a spark. It will ignite a fire. And with these dry conditions, low humidity, dry grasses, it will cause a fire spread. The other thing, you mentioned 800,000 customers without power. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of addresses. There's absolutely going to be people within that range that have medical problems, who rely on electricity to keep their medications at a certain temperature, their oxygen devices. So if you're one of those people, consider relocating during this potential power outage, or make sure you have backup power. Also, if you're in these areas, make sure you have battery-powered radios, and something simple, charge your cell phones immediately before you go to bed tonight. Give them as much power as possible.
What should people do to make sure that they're still getting notices?
We rely on our cellular data very heavily in society today, and that's fine. Those are going to work for quite a while, but we want some other things too, right? So that's where we go into the radios, battery-powered, AM radios, very simple devices. And these are things that I think in a prior generation we used to be very ready for, but AM radio, all that's going to be broadcast on that. It's going to come right away. It's going to be immediate. And here's the other thing. Listen for the sirens in some of the neighboring counties to Sacramento. Some of the sheriff's departments have used different sirens to notify when it's time to evacuate. We're talking about Fire Prevention Week this week also. It's National Fire Prevention Week. And one of their themes is to plan 2 ways out of your house when it catches on fire. But that's a good theme to use for your neighborhood as well. Have at least 2 ways out. Fire might impinge one of your exit routes, or there might be fire apparatus coming in one way. So you might have to go out the other. But think about that. Pre-plan your escape, whether it's in a structure or in the wildland setting. It's absolutely an inconvenience. And I think the utility companies realize that, and certainly the fire services and the other public safety agencies do as well. But it's for a reason. We don't want to have a repeat of the past incidents. And we do know that several of these fires have been caused by electrical generation issues. A point on that, though, is that it's not always a utility company. Sometimes that comes from generators that people have in their yards. So if you're going to use a generator for backup power, make sure that you have it cleared of vegetation. Those get hot. Those sometimes spit out sparks out of their exhaust systems. So if you're doing that, great. We understand that that has to happen, but make sure you have good clearing around it and make sure that that's a well-maintained device. And if possible, look at buying a battery-powered generator. Some of the new battery-powered generators can actually supply power for up to 20 to 30 hours for a refrigerator, and that can actually keep you and your medication safe and at the right temperature for a very long time.
But folks are saying, well, what about SMUD? What about some of the other power companies that are here within our area, Roseville, for example? What should people know in that regard?
Right now, we don't have a indicator that we're going to lose power in the Sacramento County area. However, we are going to have the same winds that are affecting Butte and Placer and Amador and El Dorado counties come through the same area. In fact, the way that this area is designed, the geography is that we're all in a valley. And when the north wind comes and it gets in alignment with the slopes and the mountain ranges in Butte and blows right through Sacramento, that wind becomes super dried. That helps dry out the fuel with any of the recovery of moisture that they had overnight and makes it even more ready for ignition. So we're going to look at humidity is probably in the 10 to 20% tomorrow, which is as bad as they've ever been. I'm not going to say the lowest, but they're going to be bad. So any kind of spark can cause a fire. Wind drives fires on flat terrain more than any other feature. So with that, with a 20 mile per hour wind, we're going to have a hard time catching up with any kind of grass fires, which are historically fast moving incidents. However, with that said, we're also very well staffed in this region. All of the local agencies between Metro Fire, Sacramento Fire, Folsom, Cosumnes, great staffing. We have our helicopter staff, we have our bulldozer already staffed. So we're going to be able to respond to fires. We're going to be ready to meet the need for any incident that arises. But the other thing is we also know that we might need to provide assistance and mutual aid outside of our region, and we're also planned and ready for that assignment as well.
So my only other question then is, folks say, okay, well, they're talking about PG&E, they're talking about the foothills, they're talking about the areas that don't impact me down here in the valley. What do you say to people?
We all affect each other. If there's a fire anywhere in Northern California and it grows and spreads, there's a good chance it's going to affect your service delivery in your local area. For instance, last year during the Camp Fire, we deployed 70 to 80 people within a few hours of that incident starting. That took firefighters out of this region, which caused us a little bit of a delay in getting those spots restaffed, although we did before the end of the day. But if we have that incident here, we're going to be drawing in firefighters from other areas to help us put out our fires. So everybody in Northern California, anywhere that's affected by these north winds and low humidities, really need to be diligent, really need to do everything they can to prevent fires, not just for themselves, but for the good of the whole state.
All right, so we're going to take you to a live look right now at a Caltrans press conference in San Francisco regarding the Caldecott Tunnel. Caltrans had tweeted that their workers stayed on the job through the night last night to provide power to both Caldecott and Devil Slide tunnels so they wouldn't have to shut them down. That's been a really big talker on social media. Let's go to that press conference right now.
To power the Caldecott Tunnel, we are in the final process of testing those generators, and the Caldecott Tunnel will remain open through the entire public safety power shutoff event. So I wanted to share that with everyone here today.
Is that absolutely, I mean, sure they've tested the equipment, but confident?
Confident that the generators are working properly, the tunnel will stay open.
How many generators were brought in?
We brought in 4 generators. We're using 3 of them. The 4th one is a redundant generator. The 3 generators that we are using is a total of 3 megawatts of power to power not only the lighting system, not only the security camera system we have in there, but all of the life safety features such as fire suppression, our ventilation system, and all of the other features that help protect the public as they drive through there.
And will those generators last for up to 7 days, or will they have to be switched out?
Generators will last more than 7 days. In fact, we will keep them on site for the duration of this PSPS season until the rainy season comes in. Caltrans has executed an emergency contract this past summer to purchase our own large 3 megawatt generator. These generators are not easily acquired. They have to be custom built, and so there's a 9 to 12 month lead time on building those generators. So in the in the temporary process, we brought in these generators with our partners to power the system.
Who do they belong to? Where do they come from?
They're rented generators. We've been working very closely with our partners to bring them in, and they've been extremely helpful in cooperating with us throughout this whole process.
And you said you're bringing in permanent generators that are 9 and 12 months out?
We're bringing in a permanent, one large permanent 3 megawatt generator that has a lead time of about 9 to 12 months to be constructed and manufactured. And that will be installed permanently here at the Caldecott Tunnel for future PSPS events. Just to give you some additional information, when we built these tunnels, we have provided redundant power sources. So there was actually a power source coming from the Contra Costa side, the Orinda substation, and we have a power source coming from the Alameda County side here in Oakland. At the time when these tunnels were built, and even the fourth floor when it was built about 10 years ago, there was no such mention of a potential power shutoff. This is a new normal, I think, for California moving forward. And so now having a third redundant system, which will be that generator, will help us to ensure that this Caldecott Tunnel remains open at all times.
So that one generator will take the place of these 3 generators?
Yes, these 3 generators are much smaller than the 3 megawatt generator. Together, the 3 combine to make the 3 megawatt system.
How is that order made to purchase the permanent generator?
It was made through an emergency director's order, which I signed this past summer, a contract that allows us to expedite the contracting process and move straight to construction.
When you say past summer, what do you mean past summer?
Back in June of this year.
Of this year.
2019, correct.
When do you expect to get it?
We expect the generators to be here in late spring of 2020.
How much does it cost?
The emergency contract is the neighborhood of $6 million.
For one generator?
Well, that includes the generator. It includes all the prep work that has to be done. You have to do all of the underground work with trenching and conduit work, all the electrical work, the hooking up to the substation. There's a lot of work that has to be done. The generator itself is not that expensive. It's all the other work that goes with it.
You mentioned this is a new normal, but I mean, there's like earthquake fault that runs near here. I mean, how is there not plans for a power shutoff? Not necessarily from PG&E on its proactive ones, but just a power shutoff for an emergency. How could this not have been thought of before?
So we do have generators on site that we use, and the generators currently only power the lighting system and the security camera system. As I mentioned, these systems were designed with power coming from the Contra Costa side that can power the entire tunnel, and we have power coming from the Alameda side that could power the entire tunnel. So if there was an earthquake or other emergency, we could cut off power on one side of the tunnel and still continue to have power coming in from the other side, keeping the tunnels open. We never imagined at the time when these were designed and constructed that we'd be going through some type of a public or power shutoff that we're currently experiencing today and this time in California.
But why, I mean, just to follow up on that question, I mean, a lot of people are surprised that there wasn't this sort of contingency system in place already. As you mentioned, right on the area with fault, you never imagined that PG&E would cut it off on purpose, but surely you had to anticipate that power could be lost due to some other situation.
And that is true. Power can be lost. As I mentioned, we do have generators that were installed here too as a third redundancy. They're just not powerful enough to run all of the fire life safety equipment that's required now in the current building codes that are required by the state fire marshal. At the time when these tunnels were built, some of them in the 1930s, they were not required to have sprinkler systems and all of those other types of equipment for fire life safety issues.
So the existing generators would have been enough to keep the lights on, for example?
Absolutely. The lights, all of the camera system, security system, everything that's required inside the tunnel, they would have them.
But not the fans too?
Not the fans. The fans are a new added feature required recently over recent years.
So in theory, without these backup generators you have on site today, there could be a big enough earthquake that can knock out power on both sides, right? I mean, we don't know, right?
There could be, absolutely.
So it is possible that if you didn't have these backup generators and we had a large earthquake, the tunnel would have to be shut down.
That is quite possible. And in any seismic event, whether it's large or not, there's always that possibility that we would have to close the tunnel for inspections. And there could be some minor damage to the tunnel. There could also be damage to the other infrastructure around the area as well.
But I was referring to the fact that you wouldn't have the power. You could be without the power to run what needs to be run in the tunnel if there was a big enough earthquake.
That's why we're doing that emergency contract to bring in that 3 megawatt generator. we want to have a third series now of redundancy built into the system.
What has this experience been like for you guys? I mean, obviously it's eye-opening. A lot of people are upset if they have to go through this. A lot of people are concerned if they had to take BART. BART would be overwhelmed with all the people getting in fact shut down. And what is the response from the public been like? What do you say to the people who are upset and think people are keeping it open, but still, you should be in a situation?
Well, absolutely, and obviously we take it extremely seriously. We've been working on this this emergency now over the last 24 hours. I've had crews working all night long, updating me every hour. I've been up all night as well with them, working on getting this open. We definitely want to keep the Caldecott Tunnel open, as well as the Tom Lantos Tunnel open on near Devil's Slide on Highway 1. And so this is very important to us. We're taking it very seriously, and we're showing urgency here. And as you can see, the temporary generators are running behind us, and this is obviously something extremely serious to Caltrans.
Can you give us an update on the Tom Lantos Tunnel? What are things stand there?
So at this time, the Tom Lantos Tunnel will remain open. We've been working with our partners, and we have also there we have two power feeds, one coming in from Half Moon Bay, one coming in from Pacifica. And the source at Pacifica will not be turned off. So that will continue to feed power to the Tom Lantos Tunnel, and that will keep the tunnel open.
Joaquin, when you first learned that there was not enough generator power for this tunnel, were you surprised? What was your reaction of that?
Extremely surprised, I would say. Absolutely. I'm responsible for the 9 counties of the Bay Area. There's a lot of infrastructure here. And obviously we have had a lack of funding over many years. We have a $95 billion backlog of maintenance work, and thankful for SB1 to bring a lot of revenue into the system so that we can begin to make these types of repairs and be able to bring these types of infrastructure improvements to the Bay Area.
But when you first learned there was not enough generator power,
My first reaction was we need to do an emergency contract and get a generator that can power this Caldecott Tunnel. I found that out late spring of this year.
What's the timeline for this event, though? It seemed like it was very close to when the shutoff was going to happen that you guys announced that the tunnel may close. I mean, when did you learn that, oh my gosh, we're not going to be able to keep this tunnel open?
So I learned about this event about a day and a half ago that we may not be able to keep the tunnel open, and we jumped into emergency mode and worked with our partners to find solutions on how we could get these temporary generators here.
Director, do you believe that Caltrans has received all the information from PG&E that needed to?
I believe the communication has been very good between us and PG&E. They've been a great partner with us, and we're going to continue to improve upon that communication as the days go on, the weeks go on. Obviously, as I mentioned, these PSPS events are the new normal for California, and so we want to be prepared not only here at Caldecott, but we have infrastructure throughout the Bay Area. We wanted to ensure that everything runs smoothly and that we don't get caught off guard in the future.
When you say finishing touches are being done right now, what are those finishing touches?
Finishing touches are just they're finishing some of the testing of the 3 generators right now, the connections to our substation, and everything is looking very good. We should be operational and on generator power, I would say, within the next hour or so.
can you reiterate what legally needs to be up and running for these tunnels to be open? What part of the tunnel? Lights, security cameras?
So definitely you need to have lights running, you need to have security cameras for homeland security issues. You also have to have the ventilation system in there. We have a carbon monoxide system in there to provide for the safety of the traveling public. We have fire suppression systems, which are sprinkler systems. Obviously, if there's an accident in there and a vehicle catches on fire, we need to have all of those systems working in tandem, in concert, if you will, to ensure the safety of the public.
So you have to have all 1, 2, 3, 4. You have to have all 5 of those. If you lose one, then the tunnel has to shut down.
In most cases, that is correct. Yes.
Has the tunnel shut down any time in recent memory?
In recent memory, I think we had a short closure for a few hours, maybe about, I want to say, 3 months ago or so.
What's the average traffic coming through these tunnels?
Over 100,000 vehicles every day come through these tunnels.
100,000?
Over 100,000.
Both ways.
Each direction.
What about Tom Landry?
Tom Landry is much less traffic demand on that one. However, it's due to the location of the Tom Lantos tunnel.
Tom Landry. Sorry, I'm Dallas Traveling. Sorry.
That's quite all right. The Tom Lantos Tunnel, where it's located, there really are no good detours in that area. That's why it's such a significant infrastructure that we need to keep open as well for the folks along Half Moon Bay and the coastline.
Just to clarify that, 100,000 each way.
So this is
morning, 100,000 in the afternoon.
Highway 24 is a major commute artery between Contra Costa County and Alameda County, obviously. So each direction, in the morning you have over 100,000 vehicles, and in the evening commute, they're returning back. Correct.
So 100,000 is 200,000.
Correct.
Okay. Going back to what is required to stay open. You listed off all of those, but only like a few of them would stay open with the current backup that you have.
That is correct.
Okay. So really, if last week, if last week there had been an earthquake that shut off powers on both sides, that tunnel likely would have been shut down.
Likely would have been shut down, that is correct, but also likely what would have been shut down are potentially some of the other bridges leading up to the tunnel and the infrastructure leading up to the tunnel. We would have to do inspections of all the bridges, all of the roadways, including the tunnel, before we would reopen it.
Did you do anything with the Robin Williams? Is that involved?
That right now, power has been shut off to the Waldo Tunnel, otherwise known as Robin Williams Tunnel. That is a short enough tunnel that it does not require the same type of ventilation systems or the infrastructure that's required at the Caldecott or the Tom Lantos Tunnel.
So the two systems without these generators you have is you have a PG&E connection on this side, you have a PG&E connection on the other side. Those are the redundant two tunnels you said?
That is correct. Typically, only one substation would go down in any event, so that's why you have a redundant power system on the other side of the tunnel.
It's a substation?
A substation, correct, that create the power, provide the power to the tunnel. The power from either substation on either side can run the entire tunnel. So we had a redundancy there. Now, as I mentioned, these PSPS events are creating a new normal for California, in which we have it now are creating a third redundant system, which will be generated power.
In retrospect, do you feel like you jumped on this too late the last summer and getting it? Obviously, it's not here now, and we're in the midst of this fire season.
You know, obviously I'm new to the Bay Area, so as soon as I heard about it, I jumped on it immediately. The PSPS event is a rather new event that California is currently experiencing on a regular basis, and so we jumped on it as quickly as I heard about it and as quickly as we could jump on it.
Do you know if the Bay Bridge metering lights problem is connected to PG&E?
I do not believe that they are connected to that.
And you mentioned that a day and a half ago is when you first heard about the tunnel may shut down. Was that PG&E who basically told you that, or how did you learn about it?
About a day and a half ago, I heard about the extent of the PSPS event, which counties were going to be affected, and the maps with the zones on which zones would be affected. At that point, I jumped into action with my team to strategize how we could address the situation, and then over the last 24 hours we have been mobilizing and bringing in the equipment and crews to ensure that we keep this tunnel open.
Have the signs changed on the freeway saying that it may close at noon?
As soon as we hit the switch and we go to generated power, we will pull those signs.
So do you know the power is definitely shutting off from PG&E here at noon? That's still up in the air.
I will leave that up to PG&E to answer that. However, what we have been told is that they are on schedule to turn off power at noon on the Contra Costa side. That is correct. So I would like to also just thank our Caltrans crews who have been working tirelessly over the night. They've been working for the last 12 to 14 hours, keeping me abreast of all the situation and what's going on out here, and they're making this happen. If it wasn't for them, we would not be in this situation today. So I want to thank you all for being here this morning, and I appreciate it.
Wait, the power's going off the Contra Costa side, can't you just use Alameda substation?
Well, the Alameda substation is also part of the PSPS. Correct.
Everybody good?
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. For those of you that actually want to go inside and get a closer shot, let's just work it out kind of over there. Yep. Yeah, and yep. So that concludes the Caltrans briefing, and so we do have Paul here from PG&E, Paul Darter, that can answer your questions.
Hi, good morning. My name is Paul Doherty, PG&E spokesman. First off, I'd like to say that we understand that turning the power off can have effects for our first responders and for the operation of critical facilities such as the Caldecott Tunnel. And as was detailed, our crews are working. They work overnight to ensure that we had backup generation here for the Caldecott Tunnel, and they remain on site here and will be completing that work shortly as was detailed. As I mentioned, we understand how turning the power off impacts our customers, and we want to just make sure our customers have a plan that they are ready to act if needed. PG&E has a plan, and we're putting that plan into action right now. So I'd be happy to take a couple questions.
Still looking at noon.
That's right. Yeah, we're looking at another phase of the public safety power shutoff to begin starting around noon and lasting into the next couple days.
And that's San Jose, Alameda, Austin, those areas?
I'd have to follow up with you with the specific details, but that's right. What we've announced previously is still what we're planning to do. No change to this point. That's right.
People I talk around here saying, hey, it's not even windy, it's not even hot. They don't quite get why does the power cut off?
Yeah, well, that goes to the interconnected nature of the electrical grid, and that is because there are potentially lines that might run through neighborhoods that are that also run through high fire threat districts, and so there, as I mentioned, the interconnected nature of the grid makes it such that we need to de-energize lines that run through these high fire threat districts that might also run through areas that are not in the high fire threat district zones.
Was it really necessary, or are you being overly cautious?
As I mentioned, this is a decision that we do not make lightly. It's a last resort for us to ensure the safety of our customers, the communities that we serve. And we know how much our customers rely on electric service, and that there's safety risk on both sides of turning the power off proactively or keeping the power on.
But was it necessary?
Well, at this point, we believe that it's definitely a necessary step to take for the safety of our communities and the customers that we serve.
What about the Caldecott Tunnel situation? That seems like major infrastructure that was done last second with these power shutdowns. When we know power shutdowns have been planned for over a year now at least, how could it have come down to the wire like this?
This is an unprecedented event. As you've seen, we've announced there's nearly 800,000 customers that will be potentially impacted by this power safety shutoff, and we understand that turning the power off has a major effect on first responders and, as I said, on the operation of critical facilities like this. And so we definitely don't take the decision lightly. There are a number of factors that will go into making the call to shut the power off proactively for a public safety power shutoff. And as I said, we are working closely with our partners, with Caltrans, to ensure that we can have the Caldecott Tunnel open for traffic.
You heard Caltrans refer to this as the new normal. The governor used that term too. Is it? I mean, should we expect? This is going to be normalized? We're going to be doing this every, October, November, whenever.
When the conditions are right for it, when there are red flag warnings, when there are these high winds, when there are dry fuels on the ground. We haven't had significant rains in months, so I'm not a meteorologist. We have a great meteorology team that does all of that work, that works with our operations, that works with our Wildfire Safety Operations Center based in San Francisco to make that call. And it's hard to say how often it will happen, but obviously we're seeing this happen more often this summer than it did last, which was the first year that we initiated Public Safety Power Shutoff program. And so we want our customers to be prepared. We have a plan to address these issues, and we would encourage our customers to also make sure that they're prepared in their locations so that they can be safe.
The other thing I hear from people is, okay, it's going to be windy Wednesday, Thursday. Why might it take till Sunday to turn the power back on?
Yeah, there's a multi-staged restoration process that involves inspecting every inch, every mile of all the lines that have been de-energized. And to give some perspective to that, the number of line miles that we're talking about in this event is basically equal to the circumference of the equator. So we have to go out and look at each inch of the line to ensure that there was no damage, that there was no impacts to the system, and then at that point, then we start a multi-stage restoration process.
So you're talking about 25,000 miles or so?
Yeah, that's correct. We can follow up with some specific numbers. That's right.
In the past 2 years since the first fires in the North Bay, and now we're here, obviously this idea, this plan was come up to shut people's power off. Was there any work done to replace any lines or transmission towers in that time, or was this it?
Yeah, PG&E, over the past few years, we have made substantial investments, and we've done so much work to harden our electric system. Actually, right behind you, you see one of the weather stations that we've installed. We've installed hundreds of these weather stations throughout our service area. We've replaced poles. We've installed coated conduit lines. So we've taken a number of steps to harden our grid and to build resilience against wildfires.
Well, the fact that these outages are taking place at all seems to indicate PG&E has a lack of confidence in the system about the safety of the system. Is there, do you address that?
Well, as I said, we've taken a number of steps over the past couple of years to significantly increase the resilience of the system.
But there's a feeling it's going to still cause problems, otherwise we wouldn't be doing this at all, right?
Well, I would say that PG&E is committed to ensuring the safety of our customers and the communities we serve. We have the largest footprint of any utility in the state. It spans basically from the Oregon border, down south into Bakersfield, and it's a very interconnected grid. There's a lot of different components that go into it, and so we work diligently to make sure that we can operate the system as safely as possible and to make sure that there are no issues with it.
When did PG&E learn that the Caldecott may close?
So it's a fluid situation, but I'd have to follow up with you specifically on the exact timing. I think it was alluded to earlier, but again, I'd have to follow up with you on exact specifics. I mean, we began notifying customers on Monday for this event, and so I believe that was sometime around noon on Monday is when our partners were also notified that there was potential shutoff for them. And as I mentioned, the conditions can change significantly with the weather, so it's a fluid situation, and we're constantly monitoring that and adjusting what we may have to do.
Can you explain what your resources on this project right here that we're seeing are? Did you bring in these generators, or what was the coordination?
I have to get back to you with specifics on that. We did work closely with Caltrans to make sure that we had these generators installed, and we have a number of crews on site. As you can see, we have a number of trucks here as well. So we have crews that are on site working hand in hand with Caltrans to get the generators up and running, and they're doing so as we speak, and hopefully they'll be done shortly. Yeah.
Question?
Yes.
Hey, if you guys want to get shots, we probably need to do that because we're coming up to the next top of the hour, and you're going to be available, Paul, to talk?
Sure.
Okay, so we're getting ready to take people in now if you want to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Sure. Paul?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Kirsten Holmes. Nearly 800,000 customers across the state are expected to lose power because of dangerous fire conditions. We're going to take a live look at outages happening right now in our area. Stay with us. Morning Blend Extra Shot starts in a minute. Everybody, welcome to Morning Blend Extra Shot. I'm Kirsten Holmes.
And I'm Brittany Begley.
We have had a really busy day, and a lot of people out there are waking up in the dark. Since last night, we've been streaming live to get you the latest information on this historic PG&E Power public safety shutoff. Now, red flag warnings and the wind are expected to hit around today. Right now, thousands of customers are in the dark. So if you're not in the dark, you probably know someone who's in the dark. Brittany right here has been affected as well. And in about an hour, a second wave of shutoffs could start. A lot of people affected.
Yeah, and a lot of people are asking on our Facebook. I mean, we've been on it since 2 this morning asking, what about, am I going to pay for this? Well, you know, if I don't have power, do I have to pay? PG&E saying, no, you do not have to pay. The next thing we want to make sure you know is resource centers are open for you. I'll tell you this morning, our crews checked out the El Dorado Hills one. It wasn't that busy. Off the top of my head, I know about 5,000 customers in El Dorado Hills do not have power. But if you need to charge your phone, if you need to cool down, that's the opportunity that you want to take at the resource centers. I'm going to break it down for you a little bit later on today. Go to abc10.com for all the information, and of course we'll update you. And I probably will head out to a resource center today because I have no power. I had to bring my son to school today and work, so just a lot.
That's a lot, and I'm praying for you, girl. We're going to get you
Please
together.
do.
All right, so let's take a look at one of the hottest things on the internet right now. There are so many people trying to access this outage map that the site is crashing. This is a live look, real time on PG&E's website at the outage map. The purple circles you see are places where there is a public safety power shutoff. And you see it stretches from Central California all the way up north, from the Bay all the way over to the Sierras. If you zoom in on one of those things, you can see entire areas. That's neighborhoods, communities, entire areas without power. They were waking up in the dark this morning, and it all started last night around midnight. Those people you see on your screen have been without power since midnight.
Yep, and then in an hour, like you said, San Joaquin is the one that everybody's worried about as well. So that could happen at noon.
All right, so here's what you need to know. If you want this map, if you want to try to access it yourself, text POWER to 916-321-3310 and we'll send you a link. Okay, so this is all related to the hot, windy, dry weather conditions. We got to get you an update right now on your weather. Carly, tell us, what do people need to know right now?
Yeah, right now the biggest, most important thing to know is the winds are really starting to pick up, and what we're looking at is a lot of branches falling everywhere, just like this one fell earlier today. We're seeing a lot of these debris everywhere, so just drive safely, watch out for those branches falling, and make sure that you are safe on the roadways because the winds are picking up and could definitely take the car into the next lane. So 67 right now, the wind's really starting to ramp up, as you can hear right there on my mic. A lot of debris out there. And we're also looking at about 17-mile-per-hour wind in Sacramento. The camera there even shaking just a bit. So expect to continue to see these winds gusting in and out throughout the day. We'll see those mid-60s, so a lot cooler than yesterday. And it's not about the temperatures today, about the red flag warning. We're really only seeing temperatures in the mid to upper 70s. But of course, these red flag warnings in place because of the strong winds and the dry conditions, the humidity. That is going to be as low as 6% for some areas, anywhere from 10 to 20% for most areas. So the winds out of the northeast really causing that fire danger to be possible for much of Northern California. So this is expected to possibly end by 5 p.m. Thursday for areas closer to the Sierra, maybe 11 a.m. closer to areas along the coastal ranges. But of course, all of this could be extended as far out as Friday, but we do hope and expect to see these computer models continue to showing us that the winds should start dying down by Friday. So of course, be careful with that. The winds, the big priority. Anything can start a fire and could spread it rapidly with these winds and low humidity.
That update, Carly. We'll check back in with you later. All right, so now let's check out Carlos Herrera. He is live in Auburn, where more than 15,000 customers are in the dark this morning. Carlos, tell us what's going on out where you are.
I'm on Highway 49 and Dry Creek Road, definitely causing all sorts of trouble here in Auburn. Take a look. Traffic is just one of the many impacts here. This is Highway 49, one of the busiest roads and the only road in and out of Auburn. Actually, take a look. The traffic has been backed up since the morning commute 1 mile north here on Highway 49. But take a look this way, 8 miles south until you get I-80. So people trying to get out of here, they're probably stuck in traffic for about an hour or so. Another impact here this morning is the gas. All gas stations, just like this one, they're closed and are probably going to remain closed for the rest of the day. I spoke with several people this morning, several stories, but one particular gentleman told me he lives paycheck to paycheck and wasn't prepared for these planned power outages.
worried about food in the house because we got the kids. It's just the first of the month, got our budget done for food and try to figure something out. Honestly, I wouldn't have minded as long as we've gotten more notice. A day notice is just not enough. So I just need a little bit more warning. I mean, with people with kids in the house, with like, I can't work today. Like, it's just a lot of people are cutting out of money and I don't know what to do.
Of course, one of the many stories we've heard this morning, again, traffic, one of the impacts, gas, another impact. A lot of people trying to purchase last minute supplies like generators down the street on Home Depot here in Auburn. I've called them already. Generators are sold out already. So again, a lot of confusion here. We'll send it back over to you.
Updating us all day on traffic and weather. We appreciate you. All right. PG&E has several resource centers open in the communities losing power. These resource centers are open during the day from 8 to 6. You'll find bathrooms, bottled water, and phone charging stations. Each center accommodates up to 100 people. Now, we have a full list of locations as well on our website, but this is the big concern as you head out. Take a listen.
Our public safety power shutoff program is really about safety, and we're basing these decisions on the weather forecast we see coming in. So it takes us some time to make sure we've shut the power off and we've correctly shut it off to all of our customers to reduce that risk of wildfires. So we did start around midnight to about 513,000 customers across more of our northern section. We have another wave of shutoffs that could potentially happen around noon today for a little bit more of our central to southern customers. Yeah, so when the power is out.
Yes, so make sure, again, your resource system, if you know someone that needs to know the information, opens at 8. We'll stay that way till 6. Bathrooms, water, charging station, enough room for 100 people. Our team is working behind the scenes. We will answer any questions that you have on our Facebook page. So a lot going on today. Now, for the last year, we've broken down what led up to where the state and PG, where they're at right now. After the break, we're going to talk to Brandon Ritterman. He joins us to share how the campfire started and what parts of the system failed.
To see in real life, the moment a power grid sparks a fire. The vast majority of those fires start on distribution lines. That's industry talk for these, the power lines in your neighborhood, usually up on wooden poles. The fire hazard mainly comes from trees growing too close. You get a big windstorm and it blows part of the tree into the line. Sparks shower down onto the ground below, and now you've got a fire up and running with the wind. Some version of this is what was behind most of the fires blamed on PG&E in 2017, and it shows you why the law requires power companies to keep trees trimmed back. Simply put, power lines are more likely to start a fire during the kind of weather that's most dangerous, bad wind. But this sort of thing doesn't tend to happen on the kind of power line where the campfire started. On that day, PG&E says it had a problem with a transmission line. We're talking about these big steel towers that carry high voltage over huge distances. Usually when you get bad wind, these lines should be safe because they're taller than the trees. But on that day, the wind may have exposed a different problem. PG&E says it had a weak link. An old hook was worn down, and it appears to have broken in the wind. That may have allowed part of the line to swing free and hit the tower, showering the brush below in molten metal. Worse, it happened on a steep hill that was really hard to reach. By the time fire crews showed up, there was no stopping it. When the fire got to the hilltop, it started to shower all of paradise in embers. That's just one small part of our 3-episode series, Fire, Power, Money. We made it really easy to watch at your own pace and share with anyone you want. Just go to firepowermoney.com or search Fire, Power, Money on YouTube.
Okay, so we have Brennan Ritterman here right now. You just saw him in the Fire, Power, Money series. Tell us a little bit more about how we are not going to see that, or maybe, is that what PG&E is trying to make sure doesn't happen?
The whole hope is to avoid that, and it's really a two-pronged problem, as we explained with those two different kinds of power lines. You've got problems with trees being trimmed back away from those distribution lines in your neighborhoods, and then there's also equipment problem on PG&E's part, and it certainly appears the latter was behind the campfire that killed 85 people. But the reason for the shutoffs is, you know, you've got a federal judge that's breathing down PG&E's neck because they're serving a sentence of probation for 6 federal felonies already for having blown up a neighborhood in San Bruno, okay? So you fast forward to 2017, they start all these fires around wine country, then you get the campfire on top of that. 107 people have died in fires that are blamed on PG&E equipment in just the span of 2 years. The federal judge is at his wit's end with it. He says he doesn't want to see it happen again. He came this close to just saying, when the wind speed gets to a certain level, y'all are shutting the whole thing down. He didn't do that. He left it up to PG&E. And so the reality is right now, PG&E is deciding based on what they see in the weather and where it's happening when it's appropriate to shut the power off. And it's the lesser of evils right now. You know, nobody wants to feel like we're living in a place with, you know, an unstable grid. But at the same time, nobody wants to have their town burn down around them again.
Okay, Governor Newsom just tweeted. I'm going to get that tweet to you.
I just want to know, what is it like to take on a story about PG&E? I know everybody asks you questions about it. It's complicated.
That's why we went with that fire, power, money approach. We broke it into 3 different elements because there's more to it than PG&E. The fire crisis is its own thing, right? You know, the fires are genuinely getting worse. Amid that backdrop, we have all the problems with the utilities in PG&E and our politics, including Gavin Newsom, who took a bunch of money from PG&E. So did 8 out of 10 state lawmakers from both parties. So this isn't a one-party issue.
You're right.
PG&E is a huge power player.
All right, so I'm going to summarize the tweets. Hopefully we can put them on the screen for you. He says his office is actively working with Cal OES, that's the Office of Emergency Services, across the administration to make sure that local communities affected by these public safety power shutoffs are provided some support. He knows that people are frustrated. He actually called on people to be outraged while they deal with this. But he says the first priority is to protect the people and to ensure that the communities are safe. And his office is working with state and local officials to make sure that everyone is safe and to help the people affected. If you want to see that tweet, we'll have all of this story. We'll follow you for it on our website, abc10.com. You have worked not necessarily closely with Governor Newsom, but you've asked him about this, all right?
Yeah, we had the opportunity to confront him. We actually tried to schedule this at a time and place of his choosing. They wouldn't grant us an interview, so we ended up showing up at a public event that he had. And he didn't really address the question at all. He and his allies got $208,000 for his last election campaign from PG&E. They haven't given it back. Only a handful of state lawmakers have.
Hopefully we'll hear from him soon.
Yeah, we'll be right back. Morning Blend Extra Shot will answer all your questions.
The speed of news. Faster, stronger, more connected. The all-new ABC 10 Information Network. connected to you. Powered by Xfinity.
Blackout in Northern California. More than 500,000 customers are without power in several counties, and the second phase of shutoffs will begin in about 45 minutes at noon today. That's expected to affect more than 200,000 people in places like Alameda, San Joaquin, and Santa Clara counties. All right, so let's take a look at the latest map of outages. This is real time from PG&E's website. It's been going up and down, but right now it's a massive area covering part of just about every county in Northern California. This morning, PG&E is asking customers without power to please use their community resource centers that they've opened. There are several locations all over the area, and there are several in the affected areas on your screen. Now, you can download the ABC 10 app or visit abc10.com for a full list of resource centers. Again, we can even text PG&E's map right to you. All you got to do is text the word power to 916-321-3310, and we can send you the link. Now, keep in mind, I said it earlier, I'm going to say it again. PG&E's website has been up and down all day because so many people are trying to get that information, but we got you covered too. All right, so right now, Carly Gomez has the latest on what we can expect in weather because the power shutoffs are weather related because it's so dry.
Absolutely.
And now it's windy too.
Yeah, absolutely. And we expected to see these winds picking up as of early morning. And that's what we were looking at. The winds started up right around 4 or 5 a.m. Now we're starting to see those wind gusts also picking up. What we're expecting is anything up to 40 to 50 miles per hour when it comes to gusts. But sustained winds, we're looking at around 25 to even 35 mile per hour sustained winds. Now these are winds that are constant versus the gusts that come in occasionally. Now the humidity is very low as well. We could see it as low as 6%, and also expecting to see humidity about 10 to 20% across many areas of Northern California. So this is very dry out there. We're looking at the winds moving in from the east and headed toward the west, and that's bringing in warmer air also along with this dry vegetation and dry air. Now, this is also causing that extreme fire danger, and this is the biggest of the concerns here because the red flag warning in place affecting over 500,000 customers. That's not just one person. These are customers, a family, a household, 3-4 people. So we're even talking potentially up to 1 million people looking at power outages. So this is going to last at least the next 2 days, as this is what happens here. We see a high pressure system inland, a low pressure system off the Pacific, and the circulation of the winds coming in. Now, what we also look at is an upper level low. We see a lot of that air dropping, and as it does so, it comes up and over the mountains and actually becomes warmer. So we actually start to see these winds actually becoming warmer and moving across much of the Sierra here. We can expect those downslope winds to start affecting us when it comes with this red flag warning. Now, the wind's coming in early this morning, but this is lasting as long as about 5 p.m. tomorrow for areas closer to the Sierra and the foothills. We're talking areas of Auburn, El Dorado Hills, a lot of places in our area as well, as we'll start to see this red flag warning and the winds picking up. We're even looking at winds even peaking early tomorrow morning, moving into Thursday. That could be the highest of the event. So let's take a look here as we look at some of these winds now. 28-mile-per-hour winds being recorded in Sacramento, 18 in Marysville, 29 in Fairfield, 19 Oroville. Now we move on throughout the evening hours, and we're still looking at some very quick winds. But here's the overnight winds I want to show you. 27 in Fairfield, and we could see them even as high as 30 miles per hour as we start to get into midday tomorrow. So this is where we could see more people being affected by power outages potentially as we begin to move through Friday. This is where our computer models here are showing things calming down. So that is a good thing. But of course, things can also change instantly. Some of these numbers could continue to see these winds increasing in the next 24 hours after Thursday. So that red flag warning in effect, they're not necessarily out of the clear just yet. And this is also what helped cause some of those fires to spread near Paradise, the Santa Rosa area, and Napa, as you see those winds coming in off the mountainside. And then, of course, helping to push a lot of that fire, anything that sparks out further and drastically help it expand. Kirsten.
All right, thank you for that, Carly. That's a really good perspective of what we're going through. All right, so today employees at the California Office of Emergency Services, they're working 12-hour shifts, kind of like us today. A lot of people are putting in a lot of energy because the impacts of the PG&E shutoffs. Now, right now, we're checking in with Giacomo Luca about how they're helping the community. Giacomo, again, thank you so much. You've been out there all morning. First of all, thank you for your efforts. But tell us, what do people need to know from Cal OES right now?
Well, the most important thing right now is that there are dozens of people in this building in Mather that are on standby, and they are monitoring the conditions, and they're going to be doing it 24 hours a day until this entire weather event gets past us and until the power gets shut back on. I mean, there are crews from really all over, both the government and the private sector, you know, from CHP to CAL FIRE to the Department of Health, as well as folks like PG&E, who are all here making sure that if something happens or if there is a need anywhere across the state, that folks in our communities are going to have it. Now, I want to bring in Lindsay Palo. She's with PG&E, and she's here to answer some of the questions that you all have. Thanks for joining us, Lindsay. I really appreciate it. I know your time's valuable right now, and you've been in and out of meetings all day. The biggest question that we seem to be getting right now is, the power went off early. Why?
Yeah, you know, first and foremost, we really want to let our customers know we know how disruptive this is to have the power shut off for safety. We're very appreciative of all of our state and county and local partners who are here working with us, and we're here working with them to try to keep our community safe as this high wind event continues. And really, it's about the weather. Weather is not, you know, weather forecasting is not an exact science. It can change. We plan these events around when the forecasts are telling us the wind will start. We need a couple of hours head start to shut down the system, and so that's why we started shutting down the system at about midnight last night. That continued until 4 a.m.
You don't want to get into a position where the weather comes in early and then we haven't done that. Thank you so much, Lindsay, for joining us. I appreciate it. We'll send it back to you all in the studio.
All right, thank you again, Giacomo, for your hard work out there. Again, you can text us to get more information. Text the word POWER to 916-321-3310, and we'll send you the link. We'll leave the number on the bottom right side corner of your screen for the remainder of the show, but we want you to stick around because we'll be right back with more information. To get you the latest on these historic PG&E power, public safety power shutoffs. That's what they're calling it.
Yeah, after midnight, over 500,000 customers lost power in places like Fairfield, Auburn, El Dorado County. So that's really the concern as more people head out.
Oh, and it gets worse. In about 30 minutes, more people are going to be added because there's going to be a second wave of outages. 200,000 people will be affected in places like La Mesa, San Joaquin, and Santa Clara. Real quick, we got to get you in.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of these strong winds starting to pick up right now, and they're going to continue overnight Thursday into Friday, and that's the dangerous part. It's going to be dusty, a lot of tree debris everywhere. Driving is going to be hard, so be careful with that as well.
Go to abc10.com for information. Y'all have a good day.